Utilities budget committee meeting to order. I guess we'll do a Pledge of Allegiance if someone has a flag. Does anyone have the flag?
I can run and get one, Nanasha, if you don't have it readily available. Want me to run?
I can share it here.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, Anasha, since you're displaying the flag, would you like to lead us?
All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman Cummings. And thank you for reducing my screen. Okay, roll call. Councilperson Gully is not yet present. Councilmember McDermott.
Here.
And Committee Chair Zalewski, I am here. I will add that we also have councilpersons Ash McPherson, Steele, Cummings, and Council President Mantello with us. Well, Council President Mantello is ex officio on all committees.
Ex officio.
Is that what you're going to say?
Yep. Thank you.
I'm one step ahead of you. Okay, and from the administration, we have, if I can see the room correctly, our Superintendent of Public Utilities, Chris Wayland, our Comptroller, Andy Piotrowski, Mayor and Deputy Mayor Madden, and Kuzieski. Am I missing anyone? Yeah, Patrick, I can't. Yeah, my screen is so small. I think it's you back there, right? Okay. It's hard to tell. Okay, so we're going to get started. There's a whole bunch of categories here that we're going to be going over tonight, but we are going to start on page 220. Well, actually, Chris, unless I go out of order and you wanted to do something else, I believe we're going to start on page 220, which would be water fund revenues.
Budget for DPU. So yeah, that's where I would suggest to start off.
Okay. So everyone, if you can flip to page 220, this is not based on table of contents, based on true page numbers on the printed hard copy of the budget. Chris, I'm handing it over to you.
Oh, great, thanks. So when you look at these, you'll see the proposed 2022 estimates. What we do is we average the past few years and try to come up with an accurate number, and then we try to base it on what might be coming up in the next year, or if we see a downtrend or an uptrend, kind of realistically calculate where these numbers are going to go. So that starts off the whole real budgeting process, is the revenue side, and what do we have coming in, and then we go through the expenditure side, and then we balance it out in between. So as you look, you can see the City of Troy water sales, all the communities you can see, kind of self-explanatory as you go down through, right down through fishing permits, sales scrap metal. Is there any specific questions? It kind of is what it is.
Council President, or sorry, Chair.
Yes, Councilmember Cummings.
Let's see. First question, sale of meter water sales. I see the proposed estimate for 2022 is significantly higher than actual receipts in 2020. How is that calculated, and how are we doing for this year?
You broke up at the most important point on that. What was the question?
Let's see. Can you? Is it coming through now?
Yeah.
All right. Just wanted. I'm seeing that the trend for water, the estimates for water sales are all significantly higher than the actual receipts in 2020. Was 2020 particularly low? What's why is our why are estimates so much higher than
Why are they
actual?
different?
Yeah.
So we look at actual, what like the past 3 or 4 year trend is. So what's in here is actual receipts for 2020. And if we remember, 2020 was kind of messed up with the pandemic. So it's
Yeah.
really hard to take any number from 2020 as actual.
Gotcha.
People were working from home, business were shut down, schools were shut down, so everything was a little bit different. So it's kind of hard to, I looked at that this afternoon. I'm like, it's kind of hard to judge it based on that.
Yep.
But the proposed is based on like the past 3 years previous to that to get to that number.
Is it an average of the
Because
past
what-
3 years or a trend from the past 3 years?
So it's an analysis looking back at the actual flows from 18, 19, 20, and a projection for 2021 based off of where we're at historically. I think it's also important to bear in mind that the proposed budget includes a 0.2 cent per $1,000, no, 0.2 cent or dollars, a 20 cent per 1,000 gallon increase to the city water rate and an accompanying 20 cent per 1,000 gallon decrease to the city sewer rate. So that has been incorporated into these projected revenues as well.
Okay.
That-
So shifting.
that-
That makes sense.
That shift in the per 1,000 gallon rate for water and sewer respectively is net neutral to the city resident who pays water.
Okay.
And I do have a sheet that I will send to the council. I actually used my own personal usage from the last 3 water bills that I have that proves that, so that the council can have that for their records.
Okay. Great. And then I noticed the interest and penalties line. Is that impacted by the ongoing payment plan requirements? Or are those continuing into 2022?
There's been some impact to them, not necessarily material. The state did make changes to that public utility regulation that is going to be discussed with Corporation Council towards the end of the year to see where we fall with regards to re-levy, when those are due, things of that nature. It is creating a bit of a cash flow issue because there's really no incentive for those who have those payment plans to pay, which is that's the bigger problem of what we're seeing, is we have taking the moral side of that out, just the financial implications to the city's water fund, not being able to turn off water for non-payers, it does impact the city's water fund cash flow when you look at it in comparison to other years. There is certainly an impact there. So it's more balance sheet based, I would say, than revenue and expenditure based.
Okay.
Any other questions, council member
Mayor?
comments?
No, that's it for now.
Okay,
Thank you.
before we go on, I'd like to note that council member and committee member Gully has joined us.
Chair,
Councilperson Ash McPherson.
thank you. I just got a couple questions. Chris, can you tell me under the sales of property and compensation, the minor sales, can you explain that for me?
Minor sales under that comes under our hydrant permits and other permits that we gain revenue from developments for people working in the city, that sort of thing.
So you're estimating a revenue of 19,000 for 2021. We estimated, or we got 19,000 in revenue. Am I reading that right?
With the way that the development, yes, with the way the revenues or way developments are going in the city, we have seen an abundance of hydrant permits come in and water usage based on that. And we put a meter on anything that goes over 2 days. So when we start metering that water, it adds a water bill to it also, which increases it. Again, it's an estimate. It's not a significant estimate in the overall budget of $12.2 million, but it is an estimate in there, yes.
Right, but it's an increase. It's a triple increase, so from 5,000 to 19,000. So I was looking at that.
Yep. Yeah, but the way the developments are going and the amount of hydrant permits that we're pushing out of the office and how much water's being used for demolition, for construction,
Okay.
that's reasonable.
So you're estimating about 19,000 there. So then my next question, we're
Yep.
gonna go to use of money and property. The rental of city-owned real property goes 248 down to 208 to 250. Can you explain that for me? Or just explain the rental city-owned.
You're looking at why the decrease from 248 to 208?
And then up to 250. Yeah, I'm just getting an idea of where we're fluctuating here. 40,000 back and
So,
forth.
yeah, so the 250, that we were looking back at the trend for the actual receipts in 18, 19, and 20 is how we came up with the 250.
So it's not based on anything that you're thinking of or looking at for rentals. Explain to me the rental of city-owned property. That's any property that the city owns that somebody rents from us that they're gonna for the
I believe a
water.
lot of that. I believe a lot of that is the cell towers on the tanks.
Say that
We
again.
rent
I
them
lost
space on
you.
the tanks.
I'm sorry.
It's
I
the-
lost you, Chris.
Yep, it's
I
the
hear
cell
him.
towers on the. We're trying to do one at a time, otherwise we overload the system. It's the cell towers on the tanks that we get revenue from,
Okay.
and sometimes they're changing out. You know, the Sprint is now gone, so we're looking at getting Dish and some other ones on. So those are kind of an adjustment period right now.
Okay. So those are the cell towers on the tanks. Those are okay. I just wanted to make sure I understood what that was. Okay. Thank you for and that's it for right now. Thanks.
Okay, Council President Mantello.
Hi there. Hey, Chris, hope you're doing well. Chris,
Thank you, doing fine.
real quick, we had talked about before the whole Waterford Half Moon. And I know, I recognize that 2020 obviously was, a super challenging year and we can't go by those numbers, but I am noticing, since they have kind of skirted off and began, I don't know the status of their line that they're working on, but I do notice it continues to go down. Are we concerned about that at all, or do you envision that stabilizing, at least around the 1.7? I mean, obviously, 2021, this year, we had at 1.9. Where's it at this year? Andy, do you have that number maybe?
To date, so they still have one more cycle of bills to go out. It is currently at 866,767.
Okay,
So there's a couple of things to bring in to that question with Waterford Half Moon.
okay,
After the water line broke up in Lansingburg, they both have outside sources now. So Half Moon has a backup with Saratoga County Water Authority, and they are contracted, I believe, to take either 800,000 or 1 million gallons a day to make sure that line is fresh and active. They actually pay more per thousand through Saratoga Water County Authority than they do through Troy. So they don't want to take it, but they're contracted to take it to keep that line active. Waterford has also come up with a backup plan from Cohoes. When they redid the Waterford Cohoes Bridge, they put a water line underneath that, and I think they have to take like 200,000 a day from that line to keep it active and keep it fresh.
okay,
So those obviously have impacted the budget. When it comes to the estimates being so for the past couple of years, Andy and I have been trying to work on adjusting that number to make it in line with what is actually going on. And the state comptroller's office has been watching us with that number also. Other thing to keep in mind for 2020 was a mess of a year. 2021, this year, has been extremely wet. So when you look at what Waterford and Half Moon does, is they use a lot of water for green lawns. So when you have a wet summer, there's not much irrigation, which can kill that number real quick.
Interesting. Okay, very interesting. I don't know if you plan to, is there an update on, while we're on this, home and community service? And then I just have two other questions, but real quick, is there a status update regarding Hoosick Falls in terms of potentially providing water to Hoosick Falls? We are in the DEC report. Is there any status update on that, Chris?
Yes, DEC came out, I believe it was middle of August, with the report that they do not recommend Troy as a source. They believe it is too far away from Hoosick Falls to become a valid source. The health department has put comments in. Now it's in a 90-day comment period.
Okay.
The health department has put comments in stating that the city of Troy is the best long-term source, and by putting a well field anywhere up in the town of Hoosick is a short-term view because it could be contaminated over the years. Because as you draw water out, it's going to pull water in from contaminated sources. But that's between the health department and DEC at this point. They're battling that out. But those are the comments that have been made there.
Okay, super interesting. Please keep us up to date. Thank you. And then my last question, are we going to go over, we had held off, Andy, on the waterfront and Soar fund bond bans, or the bonds, I should say, and the bans. Are we going to talk about that quickly or no?
We can if you'd like to.
Chris, do you just want to give us page 10 is the breakdown of the bans and the EFC serial bonds and all of that. And, you know, obviously, you know, it's gone up. Obviously over the past couple of years. Is there any updates you want to give us on that?
So the increase that you're seeing in both water and sewer, water is the transmission line replacement project from Tomahanic to the water plant. That's the increase year over year from 2020's document to 2021's document. It's my understanding that that phase one piece is going to be completed next year, at which point let's hope that EFC will put us on the calendar to convert the long-term debt quickly. We are at their prerogative as to when that occurs. So that it's all up to them. The increase in the sewer fund debt is related to bond anticipation notes. That is for the CSO project of the drawdowns for payments that are being made there.
Okay.
The bond anticipation, and just to kind of run through the other items, water fund, the bond anticipation note for $760,000 is for the repainting of the water tanks that occurred several years ago. I anticipate converting that to serial bond in 2022. The serial bonds that are non-EFC related, $1,961,000. We had previously converted a portion of the water tank repainting. If it's an ongoing project, it needs to remain on short-term debt. So we converted what had been spent to date to long-term debt in 2021, I believe. 2020, one of the two, I apologize. But that's the principal balance remaining on that serial bond. And then the installment purchase debt is for the Siemens Energy Improvement Project that occurred at the water fund in the early 2010s, to my recollection of the date. That is what the debt is for, though.
Okay. And then just lastly, I think is it on a different page? I was looking, Andy, at the front part, the general fund, the revenues. Will that be later on also? I was looking at, if you look on page 14, you know, the community development, all of that. Is that broken down later?
I can answer any questions about those whenever the council would like.
Okay, so on page 14, what exactly is the community development? It's under inter-fund revenues, under
yes,
what?
that's the administrative costs to the city for the CDBG program. So what that represents is the cost of Department A8022 plus $275,000 in reimbursement for code enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that would probably be better discussed under either general services or planning.
It's the water fund. No, it's the water fund.
It's just sandwiched between them.
CDBG.
It's just
Okay,
sandwiched between water fund on the budget.
gotcha. Okay, very good. Because it was lumped in with the water fund. That's why I wasn't sure.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just the way the account numbers run.
Gotcha. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Cummings.
I have two quick follow-ups on that. One, I was just comparing the summary of debt to the previous year. Looks like you just split out the EFC serial
Councilmember
bonds.
Cummings, what page are you on?
On page 10, sorry. I assume what all that happened is you split it out into its own line with the EFC. Is that correct, Andy?
Correct. What I'm trying to show there is a representation of EFC debt is reimbursable, so it's all dictated based off of when you pay invoices and things of that nature, whereas the other bond anticipation notes and serial bonds, that goes to the principle of timing of when it's issued to match when expenses will occur. It's two very different types of, the names are the same, but how they're administered in my office is entirely different.
Yeah, that's very helpful. Yeah, I noticed that the serial bonds line dropped by 3 million, but it just switched into the line below it. But that's good. And then back to, what was the main page we were on?
220.
Yeah. Any update on the town of Post and Kill?
Post and Kill is kind of in a flux right now. They have their system, and every year they go up a few. So the actual receipts, as you see in 2020, was 104,000. We estimated a little low for 2021 because when you average 2018 and 2019, that's where it showed. Or 2017, 2018, 2019, that's where it showed. So now we're back up a little bit because of that 104,000 built into it. Their system is designed to handle every resident within the town of Post and Kill, but they're having trouble trying to get people to sign on to the system due to cost. People like their wells.
I guess the underlying question there is, given the news about PFOA discoveries in Post and Kill, is there discussion about expanding, or is that driving further adoption?
At this point in time, the only one that is confirmed up there is the school. So the school has designed a treatment facility for the school. Ultimately, they would like to sign on to City of Troy Water. The problem is it's about a mile of pipe, which is about $3 million, and there is no money to pay for that.
Okay.
So right now, the health department is doing testing throughout the town to see how much of a problem it is, if it's a hot spot or if it's a widespread issue. But they are well aware that the City of Troy is available.
Okay, great. And given this is sort of off the direct budget, but given the continued discovery, do you have like test wells around the Tomahawk to monitor for any possible ground infiltration for PFOAs?
No, right now we sampled the reservoir itself, and we've not had a hit yet.
Okay, well, that's good news, but certainly I don't know what could be done if there was, some in the ground somewhere moving towards it. Is there mitigation action that could be taken before it hit?
And since it's a surface water source, everything in the res is runoff, so it would have to come in through one of the few streams. But at this point, as it would go through, it would come into the intake, and that's where we sample from. So if we do find it at the intake, then we can go through and do exploratory sampling throughout those other streams to see where it might be coming from. But at this point, to spend the cost of the PFOA sampling on the streams We're better off just doing what we're doing and monitoring the intake quarterly, and then if we find something, we'll go further into it.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Cummings. Chris, I do have, does anyone else have a question? Okay. Chris, the status of the painting of the water towers, where are we with that?
Everything has been painted, everything's completed except for the Tibbetts Avenue tank. Tibbetts Avenue tank was quoted at being $4 million for a 4 million gallon tank. So to me, that just because of the height of it, legs on it, and there is lead paint on there, so they would have to fully encapsulate the tank in order to get the lead off down to bare metal. So what we are looking at now is there with the expansion of Brunswick, North Greenbush, and Post-and-Kill that all take off of that tank. The tank is actually sized a little too small. So we're doing an engineering study to see if there is a better spot to do a ground tank or 2 ground tanks and spend maybe a little bit more, but get 2 new tanks that are larger and will be plentiful for the city of Troy, plus Brunswick, North Greenbush, Post-and-Kill, and whoever may sign on up on the hill. So that's where we are now. So as you see the Tibbetts Ave tank, if you're looking at it from the South Lake side, you'll see that it looks like a spotted cow. That's the primer. The metal is still protected, so I'm not nervous about the tank rotting away. It's just a matter of we either want to get a coating on it over the next 3 or 4 years, or we want to come up with another plan for it, and that's what we're evaluating now before we spend $4 million on a tank that's sized too small.
Okay. I know last year when we had this very same meeting, you had said that your DPU had stopped all future engineering projects. I think you mentioned the replacement of the main water transmission line from the Tom Hannock to the water plant was out to bid back then. You said something about 10 million in grants on that. So what's the status of the replacement line?
Phase 1, which starts behind the water plant, kind of off Brickyard Road, and will head up to Church Street in Melrose. That is probably about 45% complete. The pipe is in the ground. They're moving forward. We have $10 million in grant on a $40 million bond. The estimates came in at $40 million. The actual construction cost at this point is $23 million and change.
Okay.
That's with the cost of the materials and the cost of engineering and the cost of construction. So now we're looking at phase 2, which would bring it from Church Street up to one of our structures about halfway up to the reservoir and still utilize about a mile of tunnel. That's engineering is going now. We will be coming to council probably later in November. We're going to be applying for financing through EFC. We spoke with EFC and we had 2 options to go with. Either use the extra 40, so we use 23 million of the current bond. We could use the extra 17 million, right, and stick with the $10 million grant that we have. Or we can go back to EFC, try to bond again with EFC and get an extra 5, maybe $10 million on phase 2 also. So we're looking at going back to EFC with an application to get more grant money for phase 2. Which will take us all the way up to the reservoir and renew everything.
Okay. So basically we have we got 40 million available through bonding. The actual cost is 23 million. So you're saying that the 17 million left there could be applied to this or not?
There's 2 options. One is it could be applied to this, but we maxed out the grant. So even with the $23 million that we're going to use, the most grant we're going to get is 9.2 million because it's 40% of the project cost.
Okay.
So that only leaves 800,000 left for phase 2, which would be, we're expecting another 15 million. Or we go back for financing again for 15 million and get a $5 million grant. If we don't get that grant or that financing, we'll stick with what we have. but we're rolling the dice that we can get a better deal.
Okay, okay.
But we still have this as a backup.
On the phone call, it was highly encouraged by the representatives from EFC to reapply for the grant.
Okay, so that's your
To note
preferred
that
option.
that is the city's preferred option and highly, highly encouraged by EFC.
Yes.
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings.
Did I hear you right? I feel like I heard two things in there. One that would get us all the way to the Tomahawk, and one that it would just get us to station in between.
So I thought he said halfway.
So there's three. The current phase goes about 75% of the way up to Church Street and Melrose. There is 1 mile of tunnel between the Tom Hannock and our first access point. We inspected that tunnel. That tunnel is in great shape, and we're going to reutilize that same tunnel. So of phase 2, the pipe doesn't go all the way to the Tom Hannock. It goes to the end of that tunnel portion.
Gotcha. Okay. And at this point, there's no plans to go beyond that. There's no reason to.
Correct.
Great. And then, slight aside, I feel like a while back you had a map of the land ownership status of all the sections. The last map that I have on that was still with some of them under negotiation and such. Is there any way you could send us that updated map with the current, which portions are we own, which portions are right of ways?
We do have an update to that. Where the pipe is actually going, we either own or have a right-of-way through there. Most of it is a right-of-way. The ones that we own are realistically old Boston and Maine Railroad. Those are the ones that we were able to purchase. Everything else is more of an easement access through the properties. We still have some small outliers now with us under construction. In order to get the pipe in the ground, we have to go across some other properties here and there are very minor easements just for access purposes, just to get the construction done. But no, the project as a whole is moving forward, and residents are the ones that we've been working with are very happy with the contractors. The contractors are moving forward, they're getting it done. It's going very well.
Does the easement allow us continued access to the surface, or just allow us to?
The easement allows us access for operation and maintenance of the water mains once constructed. After construction, we can do whatever we need to through construction. Afterwards, it's access for operation and maintenance of the pipes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. To follow up on my previous questions, to compare to what we discussed last year. Last year we were talking about that engineering in 2021 was going to be performed for the Tyler Street separation project, which was going to remove creek water from the sewer pipe and redirect it to the river. So where do we stand on that project?
That plans and specs, that's a CSO project. Plans and specs were submitted to DEC and EFC on September 30th. They are under review by both those organizations for approval so that we can move forward. And we are under a consent order to have construction done by December 1st of next year.
Okay.
So one way or another, we have to make it happen. The funding is there for the CSOs, but for the consent orders, we have to make it happen.
Okay. Also, the asset management plan that you were moving forward with last year, when we talked about it last year, I think we had 20% of our sewer assets had been inspected. Have we made progress on that?
We're continually making progress on that. We have our inspection truck, which had a couple hiccups this year that had to be repaired, but we're still moving forward with that. We probably have about 30% of our sewers inspected at this point.
Okay. So some progress.
Yeah. Yep. And according to DEC, we don't have to have every pipe inspected. We can categorize a pipe. If there's 1,000 foot of pipe and we inspect, 25% of it and it's in good shape, we can categorize the rest of the pipe to be in good shape. So it's not like we're gonna put a camera on every inch of every pipe in the city.
Yep. Yep. Other questions?
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings.
I can't remember whether this is where we talked about this last year or was somewhere else, but is that process that you're doing to categorize and scan those pipes, could that eventually be used for the asset management required under general accounting principles? Or is it totally separate work?
It's
Separate.
maybe under general accounting principles, but for the DEC and the asset management plan that they require, it's actually City of Troy, City of Rensselaer, and Rensselaer County were one of the first 10 in New York State to have an actual asset management approved by DEC. So what we're doing meets our plan. So it meets the engineering principles from DEC.
Okay. And then I guess the part of that question is, is there 10% more we could do while we're doing that would also meet the general accounting principles standards, or is it a totally different work that needs to be done?
It's different. It's different in that Chris's stuff is certainly a piece of that. I mean, you have all the roads. It's the all city infrastructure that's a part of that study that has to be done.
Yeah, I guess if and when we eventually decide to do that, will they have to similarly scan, or will they just be able to use Chris's data?
That I'm not sure about. I've never had a conversation with an engineering firm about what the work would entail. I've always had conversations with Bonadio about it, but given the cost, we've never had the conversations.
Okay.
My guess is they'd look at the amount of pipe and the age of it, and come up with a fictional value.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I guess the question is, can the work that Chris is doing create a database that makes that slightly less fictional?
I think I would have to engage a firm to know how they would incorporate Chris's data. And then we're going down a path where you're walking a fine line of committing to do the project, that falls into the scope and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like we're doing a lot of the work. I feel like if there's one more little bit of data that we could gather while we're doing it that would make it much more useful for them, it would be good to know.
Well, we can give it to them. My guess is they don't look at condition of assets. They take an age and in the case of sewers, linear feet, and they apply a value from a table that they have. They're not going to look at every pipe and every sewer line. They're probably not even going to look at every building we have. They're just going to take square foot and apply values to it. But we'll give it to them. And if it's useful, great.
Interesting.
Right, but we're not, that's not included in this budget though?
No,
Okay.
no.
Right.
Are there other budgetary questions at this moment? Keep moving. We have another guy coming, waiting in the wings too, so.
We just got the revenues.
Councilmember Cummings, are you all set with your questions?
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like there's interest in pursuing that at this point. So hopefully what you're gathering happens to be useful, if that ever happens.
What we're gathering is based on national standards and pipe inspection. So if it's not useful, it's a completely different program that doesn't match up with what we're doing.
Yeah. No, I mean, certainly it's useful for your own asset management, which is also helpful, obviously. So
it would certainly be a conversation if we were going down the path of doing the study. The budget does not include funding to do the GASB study. I think that's.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to recommend we move on.
Okay.
I have a question, Chris. Did you in the outline of the various categories that we're going to review tonight for DPU, you didn't mention the capital plan on page 276. Do we want to talk about that now, or is that going to be, Andy, is that a separate discussion?
The capital plan budget hearings tomorrow evening.
So we'll keep the water fund. We'll keep DPU in that meeting then.
We can, yes.
Okay. I mean, really, it's up to you. It's up to you, Chris, if you want to talk about it tonight or with Andy tomorrow. I don't care either way.
No, we'll talk about it tomorrow. I'm good with that.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Are there any other questions on revenues? I will say that our water fund is definitely a revenue generator. On page 221, there's a summary of appropriations. We're not going to discuss that, but if people want the overview of everything that we're going to be looking at over the next hour or so is on page 221. And if there's no questions on that or comments on that, we'll move right into Public Utilities Garage, which is category F 1640 on page 223. Well, technically it starts on page 222, but we start on page 223 here. So this is Public Utilities Garage F 1640. A lot of vehicle type stuff.
As with most of the budget lines, you'll see that, 101, 103, 110, that's our permanent salaries, our overtime, longevity. Those are really items that are kind of just either contractual, kind of move up, not really adjustable. They kind of are what they are. And then when you get into, when I look at a budget, the things that I can adjust are the 200 and 300 accounts. Those are the things that I can usually look for and adjust based on what's moving forward. So that's kind of where I'm going to focus. Everything else is either contractual or kind of like the pension, the insurance, utilities, that sort of thing. When it comes to garage, that is all of our repairs to our vehicles. That's our mechanics. That's our gas and diesel. So that's all the parts we need to fix our vehicles. So when you look down through there, you can see we have other equipment, which is basically nothing. That would be if the garage needs a new lift. Then you get into small tools and equipment, which the mechanics come with their own tools. Then you get into gas and oil, which we actually decreased quite a bit. We also found that the fire department and police department are filling up at our station a little bit here and there, so we're looking at options for reimbursing. Then you get into parts. That's just the parts to fix the vehicles, and then the repairs. You will see a significant increase in repairs. As we get into more of our specialized equipment, our sewer truck, our camera truck, the backhoes, a lot of it now is computerized to the point that it has to be either sent out to be repaired, or a traveling mechanic has to come in with different types of computer equipment to diagnose what might be wrong. And that's where we're seeing an increase in those repairs.
Yep.
Our mechanics can put the new part in, but we got to know what part it is first.
Okay. Chris, I have a quick question since we're on it right now. Gas and oil, which you decreased, you're recommending 100K. Given the, gas prices seem to be headed upwards right now. And I don't know, none of us, I guess, know where they're going to go, but they're certainly significantly higher than they were a year ago or even just a few months ago. Do you think that estimate is still correct, or would you want to have another look at it?
I think for a ballpark figure, we're probably pretty close. As you know, throughout the year, based on what happens, we do transfers here and there. I might have to put some money into it come next September, October, if we realize, some reason it drops. I don't believe it will, but some reason it drops. We can look at that number. But, when we're sitting here in October trying to figure out what September 2023 is gonna, or 2022 is gonna look like, it's hard to forecast that far out.
Yeah.
So I think it's a valid number, you know, to keep things going.
Do we have any electric vehicles in the fleet right now?
Not a DPU, no.
Okay.
Chair,
There's only a few spots where we might be able to add those. And at this point, those vehicles are only a couple years old. So I'm not looking at replacing those at this point in time.
Okay. Councilmember Gully, I think you have a question.
yeah, just quickly, Chris, can you tell me of the 160,000 that was put into the budget last year for gas and oil? I know it shows estimated last 6 months, 105,000. I doubt it doesn't look like we'll hit that number based on the first 6 months, but tell me, do you think we'll have revenue left over from that number in the last budget, or do you think you're going to expend it all?
You mean to put towards the 2022 budget? Or
How much of the
try to balance out
160,000
2021?
in 2021? How much of the $160,000 will be left over at the end of the year? And that's just a guess.
At this point, I don't know.
There's been $95,151 spent out of the account to date.
So that leaves me 14,000 left in there.
20
Or spent that total.
27,500 left.
27,500, because that's out of the 160.
Yes.
So the 95,000 was that year to date? That's only the last 6 months?
That's as of right now.
That's total used year to date.
That's total. That's total invoices paid out of the account year to date.
So 95,000 out of 160. So there's 64,900 left.
Correct. 37. Yeah,
Thank you.
64 and change is left.
Councilmember Gully, you all set?
I'm good, thank you.
Yeah, I'm gonna, so to comment on that, I'm really starting to think that the 100K estimate might be too low for 2022. We'll have to, I know it's tough to use a crystal ball and figure that out, but with gas prices on the rise and the fact that we're at 95K spent in October now, I don't know, I'm feeling like we're gonna go over 100K. Something to think about.
Yep, I appreciate that.
Yep. Other questions, comments?
Quick question, Mr. Chair.
Council President Mantello.
Thank you. Very quick question, Andy. I noticed the code 4 was in last year for repairs and equipment and not this year. Did you lump it, I take it, in another line? It was very minimal.
I'm pulling up my,
No biggie. It was very minimal.
yeah, it was
Might have pulled
the
it
account was budgeted for 0. If I were, in this department, it's essentially, the account 30458 and 40468 really are the same thing.
Okay,
So we'll run
Thank
it
you.
out of one account.
thank you.
Other questions? Okay, then I will ask Chris the salary savings for, I guess it's the auto mechanic helper.
So all salary savings that it's in almost every department. We calculate if an employee gets a step increase on July 1st. We calculate the salary that's reflected in the document would be, the salaries that are reflected in the document are those of the positions that will be their salary on December 31st, 2022. So then they have a step increase, say, on July 1st. We calculate the savings of the salary from January 1 to June 30th, and then the difference between the two salaries, and we put it in the budget. So it's the most reflective number possible.
Okay, so basically you're saying that you're publishing the salary that would be for that employee at the end of the year, but because that salary won't take effect immediately, we get some salary savings.
Correct. And it is in almost every single department in the budget.
Okay. Okay, any other questions on public utilities garage? It's pretty straightforward, just like it was last year. Oh,
Chair, I just have one question.
Councilmember Ashton Pearson.
Thank you. Chris, we only have 3 guys that work on all of our equipment, or are those just the trucks? I mean, that's the equipment, but
In DPU, we have 3 guys that work on all DPU equipment.
DPU equipment. Have we ever had an issue with just the 3 guys?
Nope, we added the 3rd one this year. So we used to be just 2.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Chris, last year you mentioned that you were fully staffed, I think, in our meeting. Are you still fully staffed?
With some of the changes in this budget for next year, yes, I believe we are fully. I think we have 1 position at the water plant that is still vacant. And we're looking to see if the way the current position is written, if it's best for the job that is needed.
Okay.
And I believe we also have a vacancy in administration with one of the employees passing.
Can we just stick with, oh, sorry, I meant.
Yeah, Councilmember Ashton Pearson, go ahead.
Okay, can we just stick when we get to those departments for where there's shortage or if they're over on employees?
Yep.
Thank you.
Good suggestion. Okay, any other questions on garage? Okay.
Just, sorry,
Oh.
Chair.
Yeah, Councilmember Cummings.
Just wondering if you can send us, I'll ask this of everybody, just a fleet inventory.
Okay.
That'll be probably more useful in discussing capital plan tomorrow as well, but always good to see how old our vehicles are.
Okay.
Not a problem.
We're requesting a fleet inventory for our vehicles. All right. All right, we're going to move to Public Utilities Administration, category F8310, page 227. Public Utilities Administration, F8310, page 227. And on this one, Chris, as you're going over this, I know we've already said that the 100 category is pretty set in stone, and the 200 and 300 is where you make adjustments. I'm going to be. Can you pay special attention to 3030030? I think the other materials and supplies there are water meter replacement. Hopefully, you can speak to that.
Yeah, in 2021, this year, with the pandemic in 2020, we had an overabundance of meters in stock. So we did not have to purchase any meters for 2021. But for 2022, in order to keep going with our meter replacement plan, where we change out every meter in the city of Troy every 10 years, we have to purchase meters again. And it's about $300,000 to $350,000 that we purchase meters every year for that program. And what that does is, as the meter gets older, they're guaranteed for 10 years. As they get older, they start to slow down, so we don't account for all the water that goes through them. And rather than doing the huge capital expenditure every 10 years to replace everything in the city of Troy, we replace 10% of the meters every year.
Yep.
It helps us.
Sure.
It helps us move forward with that.
So basically, 10% of all of our meters is effectively a cost of $310,000 in your estimation.
Correct.
Okay. Councilmember Cummings.
If I remember correctly, at the end of 2020, did you purchase some extras as well, just to sort of stock up for 2021? Or did you just have them?
We had some budget money in 2020 that we used to kind of stock up what we thought we would need throughout all of 2021. which helps save 2021's budget considerably.
Right.
But now we've used those meters and we got to start looking at ordering for 2022.
And there's no similar surplus this year that might be worth spending a little bit to stock up this year rather than putting it all next year?
There is no surplus this year.
Okay. The 300 is significantly higher than what we did spend in 2020, even with that stocking up. Is that have the prices gone up, or is it just that we're down on our supply and we're trying to restock up a little bit here?
Even 2020 was based on, we had pandemic. So once the pandemic hit in March, we couldn't get into houses.
That makes sense. And then just where are you in terms of what percentage, or have we gotten to almost all the meters being readable from the water plant directly?
We have,
through your network.
I'm going to say we're at 99.9% all radio read. We still have a couple sticklers out there that refuse to, and with the past year and a half, the way it's gone, we used to turn people off for non-compliance, where if they didn't change them out, we could turn the water off to put the new meter until we were able to get the new meter in. This past year was kind of questionable if we could do that, because typically those customers don't pay as well, so we're turning them off for non-compliance or non-payment. And it was hard to determine that. So the few that are left, we're still manually reading, but it's literally less than 10.
Great. Okay. And those ones you can read more frequently than monthly, is that correct?
The radio reads?
Yeah, you read. How frequently do you read them?
We read them every 3 months. We read them every 90 days. We can read them more often. We can read them, I mean, depending on how quick they take a drive around the city, we could read them every day if we could. But it's to what information does that give us?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I guess that I thought we were moving towards a system where they didn't need to drive around, where it was just you had stations that could read them from afar.
That's the next portion of this. Yes.
Okay, so that's I think what I was trying to get to is how far are we towards that vision?
We're probably about 3 years out from that. An engineering study has to occur to find out where to put the cell antennas. Since the meters only send out possibly 3/4 of a mile, we have to put some sort of antenna, and then you do a radius around it, and then that's how you set up your fixed-based system. And then we'd have to gain access to some areas to add antennas if we don't have public buildings in all those areas. Usually it's your firehouses, your water tanks, your city infrastructure that you have easy access to get to.
Is that something that it's worth integrating into the streetlight program for smart cities stuff, or is it a larger box than could fit on a streetlight?
I'm going to say it's probably a larger box.
Okay.
These antennas are pretty significant. So getting into the permanent salary side, when you look at the salaries, we do. I thought I heard a question. Oh, all right. When you look at the salary side, the breakout on page 229, we have a junior administrative assistant position that is currently vacant.
I apologize, Chair. I did have a question on 227, real quick.
Okay, Councilperson.
Yep, thank you. Andy, Chris, I noticed the insurance is bumping up, 88 to 120. And 20, let's see, like 2019, it was 66. Is that something out of our control? What's that all about?
That is as a result of, I'm pulling my file. It's an increase there was a change in coverage in 2021. This is what I was speaking about last Thursday, that we had changed coverage, we had increased our coverages, and also the policy used to be 9 months in the current fiscal year and then 3 months. So in 2021's insurance policy was covering April 1st to December 31st so that we could get everything on renewal for January 1. So we'd have one package. So the increase that you're seeing in 2022, and they're based off of estimates provided by Marshall and Sterling. The final cost we don't renew until December, so we get that's when the renewal always occurs. Historically, it's increased because it's going to be a 12-month coverage period, and also the increased coverages and just an increase in insurance rates that we're seeing. So it's a combination of all three.
Nothing to do with any of our, record or anything like that. It's just the market, I take it, and the change of obviously the term.
I think it's certainly.
Yeah, I'm sure that our record impacts our pricing. That's one of the things that is taken into consideration in the underwriting process. It's impossible to tell to what degree that does. It may have been good, it may have been bad, we don't know.
Okay, just noticed that. Thank you.
So Chris, before you move into the personnel, the salaries, can you just highlight any other areas, especially in the 400 categories there? Consultant services, the 421 services from other fund. Just a couple, briefly highlight them, please.
The consultant services for 2021 was adjusted. We had a lot of water main breaks in the beginning of the year, and we were having trouble trying to pay contractors to pave those water leaks, the pavement for us afterwards. So the money was transferred in there for paving of the water main breaks from the year. That's where that kind of jumped up a little bit to 110. Typically, that budget sits around 25 to 30,000, and we cut that down to even 10 for next year. When it comes to services from other fund, it's building office, right?
Services from other funds, the 934,209 is the administrative cost paid to the general fund for all of the city staff that's paid that reside in the general fund that contribute to services of the water fund. That amount was determined years ago, and it's remained consistent throughout.
Okay. And the water, right above that, the 417 water surplus transfer, that's lower than last year. Is that because we're just trying to depend less on the water funds?
Yes. That's the short answer is yes. So we started to decrease that surplus transfer in the 2021 budget, and that effort was continued in the 2022 budget.
Got it. Okay. If there's no other questions on the 400s.
I have one question, Chair.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
When you said the consultant services were for paving, so that's 409, the 0020, the 0060, and the 0092 that's all paving?
Just the 409. The 0020, 0060, and 0092 one's insurance.
One's workers' comp administrative costs. The other is health insurance administrative costs. And I can pull the other one up.
So the 409 is just the one for the paving piece of it?
Correct.
Okay.
I look at it, the 409 is my ability to use consultants. The other two are services rendered from health insurance, workers' comp, and that sort of thing. But the 409 is my ability to use it.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, Councilmember Ash McPherson, you all set?
Yep, thank you.
Councilmember Cummings.
So on that, I guess I'm a little confused why you don't think we'll need to rely on paving contractors as much next year? Or is that just something you'll transfer on an as-needed basis?
I think we're looking at the transfer on an as-needed basis. And if,
A lot of it also was dealing with the engineering, since we're doing so much paving, to try to coordinate as much as possible between where DPU is working and the work that engineering is doing as far as paving goes, and being able to utilize those funds.
Yeah.
So instead of patching, maybe it'll be a larger swath of area that we can actually pave.
Okay. So like, if there's a small break or a service line even where you cut out a section of road and repave it, is that stuff that you're doing in-house or stuff that needs to come out of this line?
there's a lot of things that we can do in-house. There are certain things that we cannot. When the 20-inch main blew up down on First Street, we cannot do a milling from curb to curb and fill it in.
Right.
When the main break happened up on 109th of 7th, that patch was too large for us to do. So it's more of how it occurs, where it occurs, and how much blacktop has to be taken up will determine if we can do it ourselves or if we have to hire somebody else to do it. We try to do as much as possible with what we have.
Okay.
Are you good? Councilmember Cummings.
Yeah, as long as this doesn't affect, it sounds like it won't affect your ability to fill in after water lines and such like that.
No, we're still looking at doing everything that we've always done. It's just we also realize that, some breaks are just larger than what we can handle, and residents like a nice smooth road. Deputy Mayor yells at me when it's not a nice smooth road. So we want to have nice smooth roads.
I drove over one today. Nice and slow.
I think half an inch is acceptable. I'm not sure about the 1.5 inch ones.
Yeah, no, that was an 1.5 inch one. It was on 15th Street by McDonald's coming back from fire promotion.
All right, Chris, if you want to take us into the salaries that you wanted to review on page 229.
Yes, there's really one position that's vacant at this time. It's the junior administrative assistant. And what I'm looking at doing to tie on to our asset management, we have a GIS technician that is doing a wonderful job at getting all of our utilities located on an app. He's also monitoring all of our cammering of sewer lines. He also helps in the investigation of if there's an issue that we can't find a valve, he helps in trying to find the valve. When development reviews come in, he's looking at those and he is double checking to make sure that the pipes are in the right spot on the maps. And I'm looking at using those funds to get an assistant in that position, because if we were to lose him, I lose all of that knowledge. So I want to give him a backup, give him some help. So I'm going to shift some of that funding to, I don't have a title in my head yet, but that funding is going to be shifted to a backup for him or an assistant for him. So that's where you see the salary savings of $30,000 there. Realistically, by the time I get a job description, a title, civil service approval, try to find somebody for the position, it'll probably be June. So that's where the salary savings comes in there.
Got it. Good. Any other questions?
Chair,
Councilmember Gully.
Chris, just real quick, and this is not a budgetary question, so I don't mean to take up people's time with other questions. But do we do anything with internships where we could bring somebody that's working through college for a position like that, where we could bring them in at on a decent program and have them grow into the program? Is that any value to us in some of these positions like you're looking at here with this GIS backup?
We've tried a couple internships in the past, and the problem is you bring them in for their 2 months, you beat them up, try to use them the best you can, and then they find a job that pays a lot more somewhere else doing half the work, and they disappear. To try to retain somebody in the city compared to what private companies are offering at this point, we can't compete.
Even if we had something at the end of that internship where we could show them a package that would be kind of worthy for them to work towards.
The package is what the package is based on what civil service comes up with for the package. And they find more working for, for a GIS tech. We have a great find with the person that we have. If he were to move somewhere, I know NJ Engineering is looking. I know half a dozen other engineering firms that are looking. They may not have the pension and healthcare or the pension that we have or had, because the pension system has changed. But their paycheck shows a lot more than what we get.
Okay, thanks for the answer.
Yep.
And thank you for the question. Okay, if there's no other questions on Public Utilities Administration, we're going to move to Public Utilities Pumping Station, Category F, 8320 on page 231. Page 231, Pumping Station F, 8320.
Realistically, all this is our Eddie's Lane pumping station and the electricity to run the pumps. There's not much else that goes into this one. Even the repairs for equipment, we don't have anything in there. Everything's running perfectly at this point. We have a capital plan set up for replacing some valves inside the facility, but all the items that we need to be done are a lot more than you would put in a normal budget. They would all be a capital improvement project, not a repairs to equipment line.
Okay.
And the small stuff they might need typically are parts or items that we kind of have on hand or adjustments that we can do internally.
Okay. Any questions?
Chair, just a very quick question on that.
Council President Mantello.
Real quick, Chris, it's just a very quick question. I noticed the advisory that has come out for Park and Eddie. Are you still having problems in that area? I know we had the break, I think maybe last year, then you patched it up and all. What's going on there? And if it's a long story, you could email us. I don't want to take everyone's time.
No, we've inspected, we've listened to our pipe going through. We're working on a leak that we found tomorrow on Oakwood Ave. But we haven't found any issues on the pipes. All the water you're seeing coming off of there is, we've tested it, it's groundwater. It's just the way the groundwater runs in the wet summer, and we're having groundwater in places we've never seen it before. That's just the way it kind of runs at this point.
Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, this is related to, I remember sending a request to the city regarding groundwater gathering. I can't remember the address on Oakwood now, but I think it's that same location. There's some kind of facility, like there's residents on one side and there's a facility and a parking lot on the other side. And that area, it looked like there was damage to the road in some way and water was coming through. Is that the same issue?
Yeah, because you were talking about there was a crack on a pipe to a hydrant or something, right?
Yeah, there was,
It was right in line with the fire hydrant?
Yep.
Yeah, that was groundwater that came up there.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Cummings, I know you have a question.
Yep. Two quick questions on the pumping stations. One, does the public utilities line now, or could it, after the audits that are being done around it, get any of the credits from the solar facility?
We currently are getting some credits after the audit. We just got to find out how much is actually being credited.
Okay. So we're not budgeting that yet, but that could reduce this number a little bit, depending on how that moves forward. And then vaguely related to that, I know there was some back and forth in the past years with replacing some of the pumps with more efficient pumps and then maybe going back to the original pumps. Where are we at now with our pump stations? Is there theoretical efficiency to be had with the Siemens contract, or or not?
The motors that were installed originally under the Siemens upgrade are currently still in operation. The pump, so when you look at a pump, you have a motor and a pump, completely separate. The motors have been upgraded. The pumps are still original. The pumps are still very efficient at what they're doing. They pump water. We've had them tested, and they're efficient where they need to be. They're within the parameters of where they need to be. The motors are still running very hot. We're still concerned, but they're still operational. We still have the old motors sitting right next to them if we ever need them. But yeah, the new ones are still there.
Okay. Has Siemens been back in to look at the temperature they're running at, or?
And they say everything's fine.
Okay.
When I have a pump that runs at 190 degrees, or a motor that runs at 190 degrees, it makes me a little nervous.
Yeah.
We don't need heat in the building, though.
Oh, good. That's the efficiency. Have you seen obviously that happened before these comparables. Was there a change in the actual energy use with that upgrade?
Off the top of my head, I don't know.
How long ago was that
Okay.
project? 15?
Yeah, that project was 10, 15 years ago.
Okay,
And
so
it
we'd have to
was
go
way
back a ways.
to figure out.
All right,
Yeah.
that's all right. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on the pumping station? Okay. Let's move on to public utilities purification. This is category F 8330, page 233. Public utilities purification, F 8330, page 233. And Chris, I know we're not going to talk about category 1 much here. Category 303, the other materials and supplies, probably want to focus on that a little bit, but take us through it, please.
Yeah, category 1, kind of, it is what it is. You'll see the increase in salaries, which are the contractual overtime. You could tell that we've, used about half of it so far, but that overtime also encompasses Election Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas. There's still a lot of holidays to come up where we're 24/7. So that overtime is for our operators. It's budgeted in there, and typically every year we use pretty much all of that as their overtime is kind of expected. That's pretty much going through the 100 line. 200 line is kind of staying where it is, the $5,000. And then the 303 is the big one to focus on.
Yeah.
That is where all of our chemicals are purchased out of. In contacting all of our suppliers, even this year, they wanted to cancel the contracts and have us rebid because the price of chemicals have skyrocketed. They're anticipating between a 20 to 40% increase for 2022. So I averaged that at about 30% increase, hoping some come in at the 20 side, some might come in at the 40 side, and I kind of split the difference. But that's where that significant increase comes from, just the market of raw materials, shipping, production of all of our chemicals.
Yeah.
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings.
If those contracts do get rebid next year, and then I assume the increase is sort of related to the broader disruptions in supply chains across everything. So how does that work if and when that starts getting cleared up?
So how it works is we bid the materials in November. So the bid is going out, actually we bid them in October for an opening in November. So we have contracts and everything in place come January 1. And then we typically extend them in the contract. We can extend it for an extra year. Every single company has said, nope, rebid it. We're not holding our price for next year. We took a bath this year and we're going to actually make up for losses next year. So we're expecting next year to actually come in almost higher so they can kind of make up for some losses.
So but it's a 1-year contract.
It's a 1-year contract with the mutual agreement to go an extended year.
Okay. Thank you.
If we agree, if we think we can get if if we don't think we can get a better price and they think that they're happy where they are, we just keep going forward.
Okay. Other questions on purification? Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Chris, can you touch on the overtime with me, just to let me know the purification, where the overtime is coming in on this?
So overtime on this, that purification is the water plant. Purification is all of our operators. Purification is the maintenance staff at the water plant, and it's our laboratory personnel. Laboratory runs, they run every day of the week, so there's overtime on weekends for them. There's overtime on holidays for them. Operators, we're 24/7. So, you know, the overtime for that is your Christmas, your New Year's, any holiday, there's overtime. Maintenance staff, they're kind of on as needed basis. You know, power goes out if there's an issue with a pump or a motor or something like that, or a controller, then we call the maintenance staff in. But primarily the overtime here is for all of our operators, lab, and all the holidays.
Inside the plant, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure I knew what this was. Thank you.
Yep, well, you're welcome.
Chair?
Council President Mantella.
Yes, Chris, on the consultant services, the 409, I noticed, where was it? I think last year, where is it? I apologize.
Page 233, bottom line.
No, I got it right here. No, I'm looking at last year. So back in 2020,
176,000.
it was 176,000. And obviously was it just all lumped in at that time and now it's broken out? And which consultant is this? Thank you.
So consultant services are for anything that we have to hire out for. It could be engineering, it could be contractor. So when you look at a 2020 budget and see 176,000, that could have been something a project that we had planned for 2020 that I knew that was a cost coming up to put that into the budget. At this point for next year, I don't see anything like that coming up.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on purification?
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings.
It looks like uniforms are down significantly to trend. Or is that just everyone has new uniforms already, or?
So what we're doing with uniforms for next year is we have our operators and our maintenance staff actually have Cintas as a uniform. They get in some pretty nasty chemicals and they don't want to have clothes that they have to bring home and wash. What Cintas was doing was they were lumping in some other services that they do for us. They do all of our paper towels, toilet paper, cleaning supplies. They were putting that into the uniform line. So the uniform line was going up artificially because of that. Ultimately, that's a material supply. So what they're going to be doing is breaking that out. So the uniforms will be uniforms themselves. Everything else will fall under materials and supply.
That makes sense. Great, thank you.
And if we look over at the personnel, there's a lot of folks in the water plant. Any questions about that?
And if you look, you'll see the, let's see, which one is it? The water plant equipment maintenance mechanic.
Yep.
That has a couple zeros there, and then it's salaried at $50,613 on page 236.
Yep.
That's the one that currently is titled as an equipment maintenance mechanic, which means he turns a wrench. We're looking at that to see if we need somebody that's a little more of an electrician than a wrench. We have a lot of voltage, we have a lot of electric, we have a lot of signals, we have, with everything being on a SCADA and computerized, we have a lot more wires run. So we're looking at that to see if we might need to change that to somebody that has a little more of an electrical background. That's why it's still vacant.
Is that the salary savings as well?
Salary savings is similar to that of other departments.
It
No, I'm
could
just saying, is
be
it from that
that.
position or is it from a different position?
I'm pulling it up right now.
It could be multiple positions. If you have, out of everybody there, if we have 6, 7, 8 people that kind of get an upgrade in May, June, or July, we have a salary savings from January until that point. So it kind of all falls
Okay.
into that.
So that might
It's
just be
a-
the contractual salary savings.
It's kind of a lump sum of everybody in there.
It's 3 different salary savings.
Does it include the delayed hiring of the whatever this position ends up being?
No, it is 3 step increases.
Okay, so we're not counting for a delayed hiring. We're budgeting 50,000, and maybe that'll be necessary if the job duties increase, even if it's a few months later. Or when do you anticipate knowing what, just designing and putting out this electrician position?
I'm hoping by the end of the year, we have a pretty tight job description together if we're changing it. And then we'll go through civil service for approval. They'll state whether it's competitive, non-competitive, and then we'll go through that process. So hopefully by the end of the first quarter, we'll have that filled.
Okay.
So it's likely there will be some salary savings there.
Correct.
Yeah.
Chair.
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
Chris, when I was looking that over, to me, as I'm looking at it, you've got the position for that is one for in 2021. And in 2022, you're still saying you're going to have that position filled. Is that because you're anticipating looking to hire somebody, right?
Yes.
Okay. So then down in the 101 on the WP maintenance assistant, that position is eliminated. So are we going to be short 2 people in that department?
What we did was we eliminated that position and we upgraded another one. So
Can I
that water
see-
plant maintenance assistant was moved to, it was upgraded to somebody else.
So are we short in that area? Are we down 2 people?
Yes, we are.
So where did you move that water maintenance assistant to? Because that was a physical person, correct?
That position wasn't moved. That was a union agreement to move somebody around for a temporary portion of his tenure with the city till he can get back on his feet and move back into the general population.
Maybe not that word.
Maybe not that word, but back to his original position.
It's a position that's been vacant, I believe, for at least 12 months, correct? It's been vacant for months.
Yeah.
Did everybody understand that?
Well, yeah, so it's not really an upgrade, it's just a vacancy.
This one was just,
Right.
yeah, one that won't be filled.
So you're not going to be down 2 people. You're only going to be down 1 because you're not.
Correct, down to one person.
So you're not looking to fill 2 positions. You're looking to fill 1.
Correct.
Okay, just want to
That's why
make
it
sure.
said zeros all the way across.
So you're eliminating that position, but that's not going to short staff the department is what I'm asking.
Correct, it will not.
So going forward, you're not going to have 30 in that department. You're going to have 29 once you fill that other position.
Correct.
And you're saying that's not going to short you.
Correct.
Okay, just want to be double sure. Thank you.
Okay, if there's no other questions on purification, we will move to public utilities, transmission and distribution, category F 8340, page 238. Is that correct? 238.
Yep.
Public utilities,
transmission
transmission, F
distribution.
8340. Sorry. I just wanted to repeat it and make sure everyone's got it.
Okay, transmission distribution, the 8340 line is all of our road crews, pipe materials for all of our pipes, anything in the ground. That's all, the salaries are all the road crews. So going through that, the biggest one you'll see is the increase in other materials and supplies.
Yeah.
So when you look at what we use for water materials, it's a lot of iron products, copper and brass. Currently, and the market is anticipating an increase of 40 to 60% on any iron or copper products for next year. So I budgeted an extra 45% in there for all of our pipe, valves, fittings, repair clamps, all of our copper tubing that we use for services to houses. All the brass that we use for the water meters, all the brass that we use for connecting to the water mains. So looking at the transmission line, it's a significant increase based on the material product, just the raw material increase.
Yep.
That's where that entire line goes.
Sure.
Councilmember Cummings.
Are there communities, or can you talk about the decision to continue using copper for service lines versus plastic or some kind of PEX type thing?
Iron and copper are proven methods. With the scare of PFOA and what's coming out of other products, copper can still leach, or plastic can still leach materials out. Copper has not had that issue in ever.
Yeah.
So our choice at this point to avoid any future issues is to stick with what we know, which is iron and copper. If somebody wants to put PEX inside their house, I will leave that up to them, as long as it's copper up to the meter.
Okay.
That takes us out of any scenario of plastics leaching anything into the water, moving on into the future.
Great. Thank you. Have there been any updates about the lead service line replacement grant? Are we still in a inability to execute that with the state?
We're still on a hold on that. EPA has come out with the lead service line replacement law that the state is trying to take primacy on, where we would have to replace 10% of the lead services every year. So we are working on trying to digest what that might be, what funding might be coming from that, possibly using some of the grant money to inventory our lead service lines, not only from the main to the curb stop, but also the curb stop to the house. Many places, one or the other has been replaced. You know, if we had an outside leak between the main and the curb stop, it may have been replaced with copper, but it could still be lead from the curb stop into the house, and we don't have record of that. So it's going to be a significant lift to try to inventory all the lead service lines in the city to find out where they are.
Would that be done through water testing or through like cameras or going into the houses?
Actually getting into the houses and looking at the pipe.
Oh, okay. So you're saying it's possible we could use some of the existing grant on that inventory project rather than an actual replacement in order to prep for future replacement?
Correct.
Okay, that would be great, at least. Thanks.
Chair.
Councilmember Gully.
Hey, Chris, back when I owned a pizzeria, there were, after about 2 years, there was a high escalation in price of boxes and, food materials that we needed for our restaurant. So what myself and 5 other pizzerias did is we got together and we bulk ordered our product and then just divvied up our shares. My question is I notice on these other material and supplies that there's a 45% increase across the board on metal, chemicals, and I don't know about municipality purchasing, but is there an opportunity to do something like that where maybe other water plants you guys could bulk buy and you must use common chemicals? I'm just wondering if there's any opportunity for that.
The concern comes into shipping. It's a lot easier to move boxes around than it is, 3,000-pound pipe. So everybody would have to get their own delivery, and shipping is a significant cost right now with fuel, lack of trucks. So for a company that's trying to sell us the product, to try to add shipping into that where, it might be going to Troy, it might be going to Utica, it might be going to Kingston, the cost is going to change based on the delivery cost. That's something that we can't really budget for. It's hard for the company to bid on that based on where it might go. The per foot value of a pipe is going to be different if it goes to Kingston compared to Troy, compared to Lake Placid, compared to Utica, just for the shipping cost. Same thing for chemicals.
I understand that. And that was true with us too. But what we did was have a central spot, and then everybody picked up from there, which might make it a little difficult on a 3,000-pound pipe. But I just thought that might be a way to save the taxpayers some funding and be more efficient at ordering the materials and supplies that we need. Thank you for your answer.
And a lot of municipalities, a lot of us use different little variations in chemicals, variations in pipe diameters, variations in thicknesses of pipe, different types of valves. Not all of us use the exact same materials or take it the exact same way. Some take totes, some take 1-ton containers, some take bulk shipments. So it varies based on, operations of each municipality.
With the pipes that are, Chair.
Yep, go ahead, Councilman Cummings.
With the pipes that are before us here, are those delivered generally to the specific job site, or are most of these delivered to the water plant and then inventoried out from there?
They're delivered to the water plant where we have a bulk stock, and then we take what we need for the job of the day.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, probably, I don't know if these are mostly sold at sort of a commodity level or what, but I could imagine, I don't know whether there'd be opportunity for some kind of shared service agreement with other areas in the other water departments in the immediate area to stock it for them essentially and have them come get it from our water plant. Probably, yeah, I don't know whether, how much of the overall cost is the delivery? Like if we could split the delivery cost with another municipality and they can.
All of our bids have the piggybacking language in them also. Yeah. Where if Colony so wants to use our 6-inch pipe bid, they can.
Right.
But their cost, usually the supplier says, nope, bid it out separately because your cost is going to be different. And it's not based on quantity, it's usually based on location.
Yep. But I guess if delivery is, 40% of the overall cost, I don't know what it is, I'm making up numbers, but if it is a significant portion, them delivering to us and to Albany and to, various, I don't know, each of the water departments in the area.
I use delivery as more of an example that it goes into the cost and it's a variable within the cost. Yeah. I mean, obviously, when you're talking cast iron or ductile iron, the iron is a bulk.
Yeah.
The raw material itself, the ability of having it to be melt down to a pourable, metal. There's a lot of energy in that.
Yeah.
The weight of it, shipping of it. There's a lot that goes behind making one stick of pipe.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I guess something to think about with the Albany Pool group, at least at some point, whether there's any opportunity for scale there, but for now, this is understandable.
Chair.
Councilmember Ross McPherson.
Chris, just a quick question. Because this is with the road crew out there, and I've seen a lot of the work that they've done with a lot of breaks that we've had. And they've been out there doing all this work. So I'm looking at the previous year budget. We estimated 100,000 in overtime. And it looks like we went over that by 10,000. This year you're estimating 100,000 again, unless I'm looking at it wrong. I guess I'm just wondering to make sure that we're budgeting enough, because I know these guys went over and overtime. I'm praying we don't have the breaks that we've had. But I know when they're doing these breaks, they are also going along and changing a lot of different valves to make sure other things are fixed as they're doing, which I think is a great job. So do you think that is that based on the overtime, what you did is for those breaks? Is that what was used?
Kim, I don't see
Yeah,
the
this is for
10,000. Can you point
Pardon
out
me?
the line?
100,000 under line 103.
Right, it's 110,000 there. And the previous
Yep.
current year, back in 2021, the budget was 100,000 that we budgeted for. You see it,
Yep.
Ken?
Yep, got it. Thank you.
So when budgeting for overtime, this is a little bit different than what we do with the operators. Operators, we know it's holidays, we know it's Saturdays, it's Sundays. We know this is for the lack of the God forbid type of scenario if there is a main break. You know, if it's a light winter and we don't have any, well, yeah, I may only use 20 or 30 of that. If it's a heavy winter, we have a lot, yeah, I might use 110, 120 of it. Realistically, what that number is going to be right now, I don't know. I have no idea what 2022 is going to bring us in main breaks or road crews working overtime.
Okay, that was my second piece that you just answered. That's not only for if there was water main breaks, that's also for plowing, for overtime and things like that. That's strictly for everything based. Yes?
Plowing comes out of the general fund. So when we plow, they get paid overtime out of DPW.
General fund. Okay.
So, yes, our overtime is just for our main breaks and our responses to any investigations, and the overtime for our on-call crews, that sort of thing comes out of DPU overtime.
Okay, good. Thank you. That clarifies that for me.
Excellent. Okay, other questions on transmission? Chris, did you have anything you wanted to highlight on the personnel summary?
I don't think so. I think we kept a lot of them zeros. I think we had a couple that were just kind of holding off to fill the positions, and we still are. Yeah, there's really no change in personnel.
Here, I have one question, the personnel.
Sure, go ahead, Councilperson Ashley McPherson.
You have 27 as your total, correct? Chris?
Yes.
How many of them are vacant? Any of them?
Currently, right now, 10.
I'm pulling up the sheet right now. Currently, there is 2 vacancies in the department. That was as of September 30th. As of September 30th, there was 2 vacancies: a senior water maintenance person 1 and a water maintenance person.
So grade 8 and a grade 10.
Okay, so out of your laborers, any of them you short in your labor area?
No.
Your laborers?
And in order to move up to the water maintenance person, they need CDL.
For a laborer to move up, they need a CDL.
Yep.
Okay. So you only have 2 vacancies, and none of them would be laborers. They'd be what departments would they be again?
They both be transmission. Well, these would be in transmission. So it'd be our road crews. It would be a water maintenance person and a water maintenance person 1, which is a grade 8, which requires a CDL, and a grade 10 that requires a CDL and experience.
Okay. But other than that, you're fully staffed in this department.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions about personnel in the Transmission Department. Okay, Chris, you didn't outline a couple categories under public utilities, the workers' comp and the water. I guess the water fund bonds we talked about when we flipped back to, I think it was page 10, if I remember correctly. But do you want to cover anything on F9040, workers' comp, or any of the other categories before we move into sewer revenues?
No, nope.
Sure, I had 2 questions on some of those other categories.
Okay, let's move into them then very quickly. Did
Just
you want to cover workers' comp at all?
Nope, just the installment purchase debt.
Okay, so that's going to be, so now we're moving through bond anticipation notes, and the installment purchase debt will be on page 248 and 249. That's F9785.
What is this? Is this vehicles, or is this some project that happened a while ago?
This is the Siemens Energy improvements from years ago.
Okay, thank you. And then on the interfund transfer F9950, we're not transferring anything to capital fund?
No, no, and I can get into tomorrow night the decisions about funding for capital plans.
Okay, we'll talk about that tomorrow.
But as of this time, the capital plan is not being funded through water fund balance.
Okay. You'll talk about that with us tomorrow?
Yes.
Great.
Okay. All right, so if there's no other questions on these middle categories here, the F9000s, we'll move into the sewer fund. No other questions, anybody? Nope. Okay, so we're going to turn to page 253, sewer fund revenues. I'll hand it off to Chris to give us an overview, and then we can ask some questions.
The bulk of this fund comes from sewer rents based on water meters. So every gallon that goes through your water meter has a sewer charge attached to it. So as Andy mentioned, we're looking at going up at 20 cents per thousand on the water rate to cover the water budget. So we're going down on the sewer rate appropriately to cover it, so it's a net zero increase to the customer.
Yeah.
So that's where you look at the estimates for the city of Troy is at $3,871,000. That's what we're expecting from the water sales for city residents.
And the rate has dropped corresponding to the water rate increasing by 20 cents. The sewer rate has dropped by 20 cents.
Correct.
Yeah.
Chair?
Council President Mantello.
Yes, on that note, nothing has to be passed by the council, does it, Chris?
There will be an ordinance on November 30th that pertains to that.
I figured that. I asked that on purpose. So take a step back. I apologize. So you're going to increase customers' rate by 20 cents per gallon, but decrease the sewer rate. Will the legislation propose that decrease?
Yes. So the ordinance in some form or fashion will be ordinance amending the city's water rate to be $3.632 for every 1,000 gallons, and amending the city sewer rate to be 40 cents. It'll say something along the lines of, and amending the city sewer rate to be 40 cents per 1,000 gallons less than the city water rate.
20 cents per 1,000 gallon less.
20.
40.
So
it'll be 40,
It's
because
gotta
it's
go-
20 cents in the, it's
20
20 in both directions.
40 cents.
So it'll say something along those lines, and it will be on the agenda for November 30th.
Well, talk to me, your average bill, what are we talking about? Because sewer rates, let's see, by increasing it 20 cents per gallon, are you hitting the taxpayer harder?
So I'm
Obviously-
gonna,
Okay,
I could share my screen. So this is my house's water bill for the consumption period of November 9th, 2020 through February 9th, 2021, in which a family of 3 consumed 12,595 gallons. At the current calculation, where the water and the sewer rate equal each other, our total, and this is rounding through here, but our total city water and city sewer payment was $86.45. By increasing the city water rate 20 cents and decreasing the city sewer rate 20 cents, our city water and city sewer payment is equal to what it would have been previously. And I will send this out to the meeting. There's 3 iterations of the bills. From February 9th to May 11th, we used 12,748 gallons. Under both the current rate structure and the proposed rate structure, in both instances, it equals $87.50. And then from May 11th to August 9th, we used 10,878 gallons. In both the current structure and the proposed structure, our bill for just city water and city sewer, county sewer is omitted from this because they have an entirely different gallon structure. But in both instances here, it would have been $74.67. So it is a no change to the resident who pays a water bill.
yeah, I definitely need that backup. Sorry, Chair, I think I still have the floor, if okay. I definitely want to see that backup, Andy, and, you know, I just want to make sure people, I mean, obviously, there's some fees proposed in other parts of this budget and the tax rate. I need to ensure that this isn't going to pop up. And what's the logic of the sewer and not the water? And what's the logic of the sewer having to go up? Sorry about that. Or to go, the water
The
to
sewer's
go
going
up. Sorry.
down.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant water.
Okay, the logic behind the water going up is just with, as we just went through, the materials increases, the chemical cost increases, and then the reduction of the Waterford Half Moon revenue. We had to balance it all out. So there's expense increases with a reduction in revenue from outside communities.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Council President Tell. And I just want to correct one thing. I think you were saying that the rate was going up by 20 cents per gallon. It's per 1,000 gallons. We don't want to shock our residents. It's not,
Yeah, thank you.
per
Sorry about that. I realized that after I said, thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Can someone restore my screen to the way it was? Or do I have to do that?
Chair.
No, I just stopped sharing.
Okay, great, thank you. Councilmember Rash McPherson.
I just got one question, Andy. Your total bill for 3 months is $87?
Well, that doesn't include county sewer. It's certainly much more than that.
I was thinking the same.
So when you look at a
I wish it was that much.
Well, I'm just kind of thinking of your family of, I'm sorry, I'm going off track, but your family of 3, and I've got one here, and my bill is really high. I'm like, there's
Yeah, but
something wrong here. I need to get a plumber.
Andy didn't put the county sewer charges on that bill because we don't have control over those.
So when you look at a City of Troy water bill, you have city water usage,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah, no, I
there's a
get
city
it.
sewer usage. Okay, and then there's a county sewer usage, and it's all based off the water meter. It's all per 1,000 gallon rate.
I still have an
Currently,
outrageous bill.
right now, it's $3.43 for water and sewer. County sewer, I believe, is $3.82 per 1,000.
It's
So county sewer is a significant part of the bill, over a third.
a chunk of it.
Yeah, I got
And
a
it just
high
all comes
bill.
on one bill.
Don't worry, my bill's over $130 every quarter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm a family of 4, and I'm about 180.
I'm 1. And I'm up.
You have a leak then.
That's what I'm saying.
Maybe you shower too much, who knows?
You can never shower too much.
Kim must be very, very clean. All right, yes. Council member, was that Cummings?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I see interest in earnings is down a ways. Is that reflective of a reduction in fund balance or just something else?
That is a reflection of monies that are sitting in bank accounts earning interest. There's been, one of the results of the pandemic is lower interest accounts or interest rates on accounts that we earn on and the number of accounts that we use. We also can shift accounts around that are interest bearing. Pioneer is very gracious in letting us do that. So for example, we've shifted one of the accounts that's earning interest is the money for the American Rescue Plan, and we pulled it off of another account. So it's just reflective of what accounts are earning interest, and they are the ones that have the highest balances.
Interesting. Okay.
It is exclusive though. It is exclusive though of fund balance. They're two separate things.
Okay. So fund balance hasn't gone down significantly. I don't have that in front of me.
No,
right now.
there is in the sewer fund, there was a sewer fund balance policy that was passed, maybe, if I were to guess, 2017 or 2018, in which the contribution to the CSO project that's made annually could not deplete the sewer fund balance.
Okay.
So it's current year operation contributions.
Great.
Okay, I think the summary there on the rates is that the new water rate will be $3.63, a little, maybe just slightly more per 1,000 gallons, and the new sewer rate will be $3.23 per 1,000 gallons. So a little bit of divergence. It all washes out for the residents though, which I think is fine. All right. Can we move on? All right, then we will move to sanitary sewers, public utilities, sanitary sewer, page 256. This is G 8120, sanitary sewers, G 8120, page 256.
Chair, I'm so sorry. I apologize.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Really quick, so sorry. I did notice okay, forget it. I think you answered it. I had scribbled notes under the Soar rents for the city of Troy. But I think you answered my question. If not, I'll get a hold of you. Thank you.
Okay. You were saying, I'm sorry, I thought something, you just had a question. Okay. Okay, so we are on sanitary sewers, G 8120. Chris, are there any highlights you'd like to take us through?
Realistically, here is kind of a flatline budget all the way through. Nothing really significant moving through here. Salaries are normal, overtime's normal. We took out the temporary salaries, so we won't have any summer help. Clothing, other equipment staying the same. Other materials and supplies, just to try to make up for the budget, we reduced by 5,000. Everything we use in sewer is plastic, and currently we are not seeing any increases in plastic materials, so we do not anticipate any increases in pipes or flanges or anything we need for the sewer side.
Interesting.
Realistically, it's yeah. You'll see an increase in consultant services. That's just for some investigative sewer services that we need, some cleaning we need, some increased cammering that we need that our camera can't do. But other than that, it's kind of a flat line through.
Do you want any highlights on Personnel, it looks like a little bit of salary savings.
There's a little bit of salary savings. We have one vacancy as a principal sewer maintenance person. I have the personal action form on my desk to fill that. So that will be filled. So that's a grade 12. We're moving a grade 10 up to a grade 12, which will then we'll move a grade 8 up to a grade 10, move a grade 5 up to a grade, it shuffles up the ladder.
Chair
Yes,
Harris?
Council President Mantella, I can see you.
Yep, I think I deciphered my scribble back on page 253. Real quick, the Soar rents for the city of Troy, I think you spoke about that, Chris. Andy, what are our estimates to date on that line?
As of today, it is $2,730,000. It's important to bear in mind that we bill
Yeah.
we bill at least there's 13 billing districts in the city, and we bill 7 of them at the end of the year. So we see a significant jump in revenue in December because of when those bills go out.
Okay. And I did notice in 2019, we had about 4 mil. So essentially you're saying we're looking at a couple 100,000 less for the Soar Soar rents.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Back to the future. Any questions on personnel or any other aspects of sanitary sewers?
Chair,
Councilmember Ash McPherson.
back to my usual question, Chris. On the, how many are we short on this department? Are we short any employees?
We're short just one. As I mentioned, we moved one up to a grade 12, which leaves a grade 10 vacant. We'll move a grade 8 up to a grade 10, which will leave a grade 8 vacant. And as soon as we get a laborer with a CDL, we'll move that person up to the grade 8.
So you're looking for one laborer, correct?
We currently don't have a laborer with a CDL. So I'm looking for somebody with a CDL.
Okay. So 18 is your number, and that department is fully staffed?
Yes.
You have no shortage in that department?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Ash McPherson. There are a few other categories here that we did not have on our list to go over based on the list that I received from Chris. So if anyone wants to talk about sewer bonds, this is similar to what we just did with water. There's the sewer bonds, bond anticipation notes, interfund transfers. There's a few extra categories there. Chris, I know I don't think you wanted to talk about that, but if anyone has questions or if you want to highlight anything there, we can open that up.
I have nothing on those areas.
Okay, anyone else on those final categories? Okay, then before we close, I just want, this is the most minor thing possible. Back on page 220 on the water fund revenues, there's just a spelling error on use of money and property. The first line there, interest and earnings, we just want to correct the correct the word interest. Page 220, use of money and property. Just fix the word interest. It's minor, I'm sure no one cares, but I know we're all professionals. At least we think we are. Okay. Are there any other questions, comments regarding public utilities? Okay, can I get a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion.
Motion from Councilmember Gully. Do I have a second?
Second.
A second from Councilmember McDermott. All in favor of adjourning? Aye?
Hi.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And we are officially adjourned.
Thank you, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Chris. We really appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Yep. Looks like Andy might have taken a bathroom break. So do people want to take like maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes? No. Carmela's like, no, let's just push on. Sue is, she's had it.
I figure we can all, if you need to run, you can run, just keep it rolling.
Yeah. Okay. Let's keep moving along. Quinn, are you with us? You are on. Are you ready to go?
Quinn's on his way into the main conference room right now with us.
Got it.
He'll be in
Okay.
momentarily.
Okay. Very good. Okay. While we're prepping, actually, we're going to be on page 75 to start up. This should be much quicker than public utilities. All right. It is 8:09 p.m. And I'm going to call the Science and Technology Budget Committee meeting to order. And I will, I'll do a roll call. Councilmember Gully.
Still here.
Councilmember Cummings. And Committee Chair Zaluski, I am here. All members are present. In addition to committee members, we have Councilmember Ash McPherson, Councilmember Steele, Councilmember McDermott, Council President Mantello. So basically the entire, ex officio on the committee, Council President Mantello. So we have all council members present for the meeting. Are there any objections to just moving into it without another Pledge of Allegiance? No objections? Okay, we will move right in. Is Quinn? Yes, he is. Yep. Hi, Quinn. All right. We're going right in.
Hi, sorry, we had you on mute here.
We're not that quiet.
Okay, your sound was a little weird there for a second. I don't know if that's.
Is it working now? Can you hear me?
Much better. Yep, perfect.
Okay.
Okay, so we're going to turn to page 75. This is Science and Technology Information Systems, category A1680. Page 75, category A1680. And for this committee meeting, this will be the only category I'm aware of that we'll be talking about tonight. Just to give Sue like a preview of that it won't be hellish. She's dosing up on coffee, it looks like, so. All right, Quinn, do you want to take us through the 2022 BIS budget, please?
Sure. So one of the main things you'll see is the consultant line item. Now, that's a possible shared services agreement with Capital Region BOCES. We put a lot of work into that, and it offers the possibilities to do a number of things. One is to use the Northeast Regional Information Center as a disaster recovery site. A lot of these applications are critical to city services, taxes, applications the PD uses, fuel inventory automation. We have 45 servers here hosting applications. So if there was an event in any of these systems, whether it's hardware, software, physical, that gives you, those applications can spin up in real time with the current data, and they can run the city services. The first light is in this building. There is no construction cost to get a connection to them, which is how they set up their customers through basically point-to-point gigabit connections. So it includes a connection to that data center, disaster recovery for our services, a backup internet connection at City Hall. Right now, we have fiber from Magna 5. Now, I previously worked at Magna 5, and I know they have their own infrastructure, their own fiber throughout the city. The people that put that together are long gone. So they're not infrastructure experts like a First Light or a Crown Castle or Spectrum. And I know part of the fiber goes through the Freer building. I've seen a piece of cement fall in the basement of that on fiber, yet the fiber kept working. So it's good to have some continuity if there's a fiber cut to keep people, not interrupted. It also has off-site backup. Currently, our off-site backups are at the water plant. It is not as big of a repository as we'd like, but it does have some of the critical systems there. Also, we are on an older email platform that was attacked by a state-sponsored organization. We patched it. Microsoft patched it even though it was end of life, but there's many critical things that are end of life that they don't fix. So there's a problem in something. Microsoft fixes it. After a certain point, they say, hey, we're not going to repair this old stuff for you. You got to get the new stuff. It was such a national problem that Microsoft still fixed it, but I've seen things they're not fixing, even though they're critical if it's not, what they're saying you should be on. And so we need to get on a new email platform. And what we did is we expanded the existing platform. We made it hybrid with the cloud. We started moving mailboxes to it. But with our department, we don't really have the resources to do it quickly to move everything, all the 400 to 500 mailboxes. But we have given the people at the NERIC data center, the BOCES staff, the ability to do this for us. They have that access now. And, if that is something that goes through, that project will complete quickly. We'll be on a much more secure system. We'll have a disaster recovery site, off-site backups, and backup internet connectivity at City Hall. If that project doesn't go through, we still do have backups at the water plant. We still have fiber optic connectivity for the internet at City Hall. We have a functional email system, and we have started moving mailboxes to the cloud, and we can complete that migration, and it will just take significantly longer. So that's that item 409.
Yep. Okay, are there any other aspects of the budget you want to cover before we start asking questions?
I'd say, we have a plan, a long-term plan. We have a short-term plan. We've been using the increase in the budget to make a lot of improvements, to modernize the infrastructure. A lot of it is very old, unsupported. We have to get the city off copper communication systems. We're making a lot of progress, and it is nice to have the increased budget to continue making progress and kind of get things where they can be more robust to have the higher chance of being reliable.
I know last year, Quinn, you definitely outlined a long list of accomplishments since you had started, or maybe some of the projects were underway before you came in. You had the temporary tax payment kiosk at the NIC, and the new phone system in the fire department. I think you were starting to use some open source software to monitor, your virtual machine infrastructure. Patches to Windows, patches to Exchange, HVAC monitoring at police and fire stations. You listed a lot of stuff. Do you have a similar list for this year, accomplishments over the last year? Did you not get a chance to prep that? If you don't have it now, that's fine. I can certainly, we can catch up later on it.
Yeah, we did. We did put that together. So Belinda and Mike implemented 2 applications. One was for planning. It's a lot of other cities use it, like Albany. It's from the vendor Telemi, called Building Blocks. Planning really loves it. It's on our end, what we had to do is basically get them all the information from the assessment systems, from the tax systems, from the code violation systems. So what Steve can do and that group can do is they can basically look at a map and say, okay, I want to see areas that have a lot of foreclosures that, doesn't have a lot of code violations. Was one of the examples that they use in that software, but apparently it's very useful software, but it required a lot of back-end work to implement it by the two programmers. Another software we implemented was Recollect, which is, the mobile app that, someone can put in their address and it tells them, how do you get rid of a battery, when their garbage pickup is, can send them a notification if there's changes with DPW. That was also a lot of back-end work that Mike and Belinda worked on because, they had to work with the mapping of what DPW uses per zone. They had to, take information from one of our systems to say, okay, this is a private pickup address, so, this isn't valid. There's areas of the map where it would show inaccurate information, so they had to work on the mapping system. The good news is those two systems are done. I actually just asked Mike and Belinda, hey, where's our documentation with this stuff? Because that's what ends up happening is we get a lot of technical debt, we get this stuff working, but, there's no document as far as how to log into it, how to do something in it. So those were the two big things that the programmers got done besides doing, all their daily functions with the stuff they're responsible for. Mike's been doing great. He's out sick with COVID. He was in really bad shape even though he was vaccinated, but he's actually finally just got cleared from DOH to come back. We have done a lot of improvements to the code enforcement software. We put pictures on the violations. People would say, hey, this isn't true. This stuff wasn't in front of my house. So kind of clears it up having pictures. We automated updating the owners in the code enforcement software. We fixed up the Fuel Master program, which is the fuel inventory program. So basically the fuel is automated now. They swipe a card. The DPW people had implemented it. They had radios and the station, but it was never put together and working correctly.
Nice.
We implemented a ticket system with a knowledge base and a fax. We've answered over 1,000 support tickets. We set up the training for the fire department. Joe works heavily, upgrading PD applications, the stuff in their cars, the stuff there, basically every department. We have replaced the phone system at DPW. That was an old PBX. We have, it was nice you guys sent that email from MSISAC. We started working with them. They offered a lot of free services that I was looking to pay for. Not anything huge, but they gave us some stuff for free, which was really nice. Vulnerability scans, DNS security stuff.
Yeah.
We met with the guy, I think Mike, he's from Lansingburg, went to RPI, and he's, really all about helping us. So that's been great.
Awesome.
Yeah, he's super helpful. We met at Public Utilities to kind of work with the SCADA stuff too, since Chris is making upgrades to the SCADA system. We have been upgrading the operating systems to try and get under support. Have old servers. We have Windows XP, so you guys probably know Windows XP shouldn't be running critical systems on it, but we have a plan over years to get off of unsupported operating systems. Public Utilities is getting fiber optic cable. They're going to have to do some construction. That's because Verizon told Chris Whalen that they're not going to support some of his control systems anymore. So we're working on getting that fiber up there. That we met with Verizon maybe a month ago, and they can get into the other side of the road, and Chris can take it from the other side of the road into the building. We implemented the body camera network and got that project going. That's actually set up really, really thoroughly. There hasn't been an issue with it.
That's great.
That is the main things we've done.
Quinn, last year you were talking about, Microsoft Exchange 2010, I think is what you were running, and it's no longer supported. Where do you stand with that?
So we built the hybrid deployment. So we synchronized our local directory of the 400 some odd users to Microsoft. In doing so, we changed every user password with a new password policy because there was a very weak password used here. That if you started using a more common online service, would get compromised. So we changed all passwords but 80 so far. So we're synchronized with Microsoft. We built the hybrid deployment with Exchange Online, and we've moved some mailboxes to Exchange Online. The component under consultant services is for BOCES to move the actual 500 users. So they've got the whole framework, it's all tested. We can do that ourselves, it'll just take us a lot longer.
Yeah. Are you moving to like Office 365 or something other than that?
Yeah, it's Office 365. It's basically the same. We're just going from 2010 to we're in the GCC cloud. So our tenant is in the government cloud. It's got a little different regulations, like the servers have to be in the United States and different things like that. But essentially we're moving to Exchange Online in the GCC cloud.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny you said this. Servers have to be in the U.S. because where I work and where Carmela works at the Senate, we've been, for some reason, over the last month, attacks on our servers have gone up dramatically, and we're talking about banning all IP connections from outside the United States because.
Wow, that's pretty harsh.
Yeah, like it is, and we had to make sure that because we have certain services that are up on the cloud, where we're hosting across various containers and all of that. And if those containers are running on servers that are outside the U.S., of course, our services would start going down. People wouldn't be able to access it. So we're in a lot of conversations about it. But the bottom line is, security is a big issue, and I'm really happy to see that you're thinking about it.
Sure.
Andy accidentally turned off the power, so we're just gonna turn it back on. We did hear you, Ken.
Okay.
The cybersecurity stuff is out of control. We're doing everything we can.
I apologize for this.
And we're gonna have to take Andy's shoes away.
We're having technical difficulties.
We're being attacked as we speak. Look at this. See, this is what happens.
Don't spread those rumors.
Right. Councilperson Ash McPherson, you have some questions.
I do. Maybe the answer was in there, but I might have lost it when you guys started talking about all your technical stuff. So I apologize if I am repeating my question. Quinn, the dues and subscription is $285,000. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, so that includes a lot of improvements like user training. It includes upgrading everybody to Exchange Online. There was software that we weren't paying for under a trial for FOIL. Another big thing is Civic Plus is in there. So Civic Plus, I'm not sure who on the council recommended it, but Belinda also recommended it to me, and Belinda, and John started investigating it, and many, many cities are using it, and it's kind of a suite for municipalities, and it has a lot of things that might be helpful. One is Civic Ready, and Civic Ready can do things like if there's a snow removal, it can text and call people. If there's a tornado, coming in, it can call people's phones, kind of like the National Weather Service. If there's a water main break, we can highlight an area, say of South Troy, and it can contact all those people.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? So
Absolutely.
when you say that in there, there's that Civic Plus, that's a big chunk of this, correct?
Civic Plus, but the American Rescue Plan covers it. The recurring is in that budget.
Quinn, the first part of your response, the first part of your response was cut off. If you could just repeat that again, please.
Oh, sorry.
So, sure. So the initial investment for Civic Plus is large, and it can be covered by the American Rescue Plan. It's $50,000, and that's not in that budget. But the recurring thing, so 10 years down the road, is covered by that budget.
So just to make sure you understand, this 408 line, this is all of the recurring maintenance and program fees for all of the systems and the programs that the city uses in its operations.
It used to be an account. It used to be in the account right above it.
that was my next question. If it's not in the maintenance and repairs?
No, that was it's dues and their licenses, which falls more under dues and subscriptions rather than a 404 account, which is repairs that was then hyphenated to say maintenance contracts. So it was an account clean, the switch, it was a part of it's a switch to clean up account numbers.
So you basically kind of wiped out 404 and put it all under 408, if I'm reading that right?
Yes.
Okay, all
Correct.
right. I'm with you on that, good. And Quinn, you were going so fast and you got cut out and I lost my next question, so I may have to come back to you.
Well, I'm hoping you guys got tired out from the public utility stuff.
Oh, no, never.
When you clearly don't know us.
Sue is nodding that she's tired, but she looks like she's ready to go. All right. So that's great with the Civic Plus software, Civic Ready, great news on all of that. Will that software take care of some of the other concerns that we've had in the past? We've certainly talked about a 311 system, things like a C-click fix, systems that allow residents to report issues easily, even right from their mobile phone, identify their location automatically. Oh, there's a pothole, boom, you just press the button and it sends it to the city and it queues it up and keeps the issue open until it's resolved. Software like that, does this Civic Ready handle that, or do we need separate software for it?
Yes. Yes, it handles that.
It handles it, but we wanted to, that's not in the quote, the C-click fix.
From what John explained to me is that for the C-click fix option, there's like a small portion of it. It's not as robust as like its own individual piece. The key for us, and I will give credit to the council president on this, is the text notification system. This, for me, is the biggest aspect of this that I am actually looking for, is the notification out to the residents, so that as much as we love to communicate all with you, the amount of information that we actually get out to the general public is a fraction of a % of what we actually need to get. The First Street, water main break, being able to notify all of the people in that geographic area. We can actually go into a targeted geographic area and be able to notify those individuals of the situation, if there's traffic diversions, if there's issues like that. So this includes that, but it also does a huge component with the website and being able to redo the website in a more user-friendly, compatible, accessible nature that's consistently done. So all of that is done together through this one program.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just to add to that, it's automatically ADA compliant too, where right now we're not sure if we are. We also, the way we have the site designed now, there's a bunch of different vendors and we have to kind of like do maintenance and tweaks on it all the time, where this is kind of just taken care of by the Civic Plus company.
Great.
Chair, real quick, I'm sorry, I apologize. It brought
All right,
back my
I will
question.
go at Councilmember Ash McPherson and then Councilmember Cummings.
I apologize. Monica said it and it brought back my question. So this is going to, in there, it's going to be able to notify people if there's a major water main break or whatever reason. Do you have, is that all set up with their phone numbers already, or is that something we're in the process of doing?
So they'll have to sign up and join, just like, so like for the school district, like you have to opt in to the text notification. It'll be the same type of thing, just like the Recollect app, the garbage app that we're doing right now. It'll be the same thing. You have to sign up for it.
So is there notification going out to the community telling them, to the residents, that they can sign up for this, or no?
We haven't purchased it yet.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you. Never mind. I jumped ahead.
We're getting there.
I apologize. But that 285,000 is including this.
It includes the maintenance fee, the funding that you guys set aside for the technology aspect of the ARPA funding will include the initial setup cost for that, which is pretty substantial, but the maintenance fee will be covered in the budget.
Okay. That clears it.
Yeah. the maintenance is the recurring cost. So it's actually a nice breakdown because the ARPA funds are kind of one-shot funds. So it kind of gets you started, and then we've got a budget for the recurring costs. Council Member Cummings, yes.
It looks like Cyclic Fix is now actually owned by Civic Plus, which is in a good potential future. Do you know which modules are you looking to start with here? It looks like they have a lot: Civic Engage, Civic Rec, Civic Ready, Civic Clerk, Optimize, HR. And
I believe Civic Plus, Civic Send, and Civic Ready.
what was the second one you said?
Civic Send. That's kind of takes the place of what John does to get messages out to people on Twitter and Facebook and do press releases.
Okay. On their website, there's something called Civic Engage. Maybe it's been rebranded already.
I could be getting that wrong, but I know the functions is the website is the one we have the quote for. The software that does the
No, we're getting some feedback.
Okay, that's very helpful.
Is it clear? Is it clear now?
No, I think it's
Yeah, your audio is better now.
Okay. Yeah, maybe I have the names wrong, but I do know it's the website, the software that sends out the press releases and the messages to Twitter and Facebook that John uses, and the emergency notification portion. That's definitely Civic Ready. Civic Plus is the website, and I thought Civic Send was the portion that updates Facebook and Twitter and sends the press releases. I could be wrong. Maybe they changed that to Civic Engage. They're all similar names. I'd have to look at it.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I'll just continue to advocate for, especially if they have direct integration between that and Cyclic Fix now. Cyclic Fix is an incredibly useful tool for residents to get accountability for the work that needs to be done. I know
it does have a mini version of that already called Citizen Request Tracker. So, I mean, we don't know how much it has, but it definitely does have a Citizen Request Tracker portion just in their basic version.
Okay, that's good to hear.
Okay, Council President Mantello.
Thank you. Quinn, I do love your vision and your big picture, short-term, long-term. I think a lot's been done since you joined us. Real quick, I love the shared services concept. Have we looked at all maybe for state grant? Because I would imagine that the nonprofits that we're partnering with, the academic part of it, the BOCES, and obviously Homeland Security and cybersecurity is such a big deal right now. So have we looked at a potential state grant for that?
I have not.
We've been talking with BOCES about seeing if some of the shared services initiatives can go through the local government components of that. I think that there is, I know we were looking at it for one of the other programs that we were looking to initiate with, but I don't know if we were necessarily looking at it for this program specifically.
Okay.
But we are looking at other areas with them. I will be honest with you, they're a great program. Their Bureau of Information Services is no joke. It's all that and more. We were looking at them with some other initiatives through other departments. They didn't necessarily marry up really well because of the difference between a municipal operation and an educational-oriented operation. So this will be their first launch into municipal world. So it's kind of a test pilot with the city of Troy. So we've been trying to work with them to see what is a good fit between their educational aspect and background and then jumping into the municipal background. So the BIS was a natural one just because they cover that services for the school district. But as we continue to work with them and look for opportunity, we've also been trying to keep the local government aspect of it alive too.
Excellent. Yeah, I know Department of State and like I said, maybe even Homeland Security, but definitely It's a great concept. If you could keep us posted on, obviously, the progress of the project. Thank you.
Excellent.
My son just said, "You're welcome." He heard me from upstairs.
Any other questions before I ask a couple myself? Okay, Quinn, back on other stuff that you were trying to, some of your tasks that you wanted to address in the, in 2021, Windows 7. I mean, you mentioned Windows XP. What you said, Windows 7 was still running on 3/4 of the PCs in the city. So you got a mix now of Windows XP and Windows 7. So have any PCs been migrated to Windows 10?
Yes, we've been working actively on that. We now have more Windows 10 than Windows 7. We also have been putting in solid state drives in some old machines to make them not a pain for the users, and rolling out new machines. And with the, what we used the 303 item for was to replace a server at the fire department and public utilities that was very old. We don't need to do that next year. So for 303, we can get a lot of new workstations to get people off older machines. No one really has a terrible machine anymore. We've done many replacements and parts upgrades, but definitely some people could use some upgrades. And we're slightly less Windows 7 than we are Windows 10. So we have more Windows 10 than 7. We want to get the Windows 7 down to 0. The 3 XP systems are very difficult to remove because you have Vital Records on one, and Vital Records uses that to, it's kind of just a pointer system, but they need it to go physically find the copies. There's a capital plan request in from Vital Records for the American Rescue Plan funding, so we're going to replace that whole system so we don't have a need for that software that's running on XP that's not out of support for Vital Records. So that'll get rid of the only XP box at City Hall. And then the PD has 2 XP systems that are critical running applications there. And we're working with Stephen Barker to get a plan there to get off XP. We've made a lot of upgrades from Windows Server 2008, Windows Server 2003 on like file shares to the new Windows Server versions, but it's something we're still working on. We're maybe halfway there between the 45 servers to get them on supported platforms. Once they're there, we have a patching system in place, but some of them are more difficult to upgrade than others.
Yeah. In terms of we've been talking about apps, and all the new apps that you outlined are excellent. One that I did not hear is an electronic time card / clock system. Do we have any movement on that type of software?
So we actually met today with a vendor who's on state contract. We are moving forward with that. We're hoping to get a cost proposal in the coming week, and bring a contract forward to the city council if everything looks to be in order to November finance for December city council, so we can begin implementation in January or February.
Andy, are you at liberty to talk about what type of system you're looking at? Chronos versus Lats versus whatever.
It's Chronos.
Okay, that's great. It's very timely. If you met today, very timely. So, and it's good.
So
news.
this is funding that's been provided for through the ARPA funding, that science and technology money.
Yes. Yep. Excellent. In terms of staff, I know you mentioned Belinda and Mike. If we look at personnel real quick, besides yourself, Quinn, there's 4 other positions. Where do Belinda and Mike fit in on that list?
Belinda and Mike are programmer analysts, and their main responsibilities are the tax systems and the code enforcement systems. Joe works with technical support across all the departments in the city. I've had to kind of take some load off that area, and it's kind of difficult for me. So we're thinking in 2022 to use the datacom analyst to, shore up the technical support in the city.
That's vacant right now, correct?
Correct, yes.
Yeah.
That position, while vacant, I think Quinn's sorry if I blanked out on this. Quinn's looking to make sure it's the right position, but we also delayed the hiring of that too. Because we wanted to make sure that the NARIC contract with the supplemental and backup assistance was able to be realized before we defined what that final additional personnel would be.
Understood. So you're looking at a 6-month delay in hiring.
Correct.
Yep.
That gives us time to implement the NARIC stuff and then really make sure we know what the void is. Because that job description was created in what was it, Quinn, 2000 or something like that, or something really early, 2006 maybe. So it certainly needs updated. But as the systems change, as we look to go to more cloud-based opportunities and stuff like that, we'll definitely need to make sure that we adjust that personnel aspect of it.
Okay. I saw.
Sorry, Andy brought in dinner.
Okay.
Please share.
Council President Mantelli, you had a question or comment?
Yep, just a quick comment. If you recall, I had brought the issue of the data communication analyst back in last year, so for the 2021 budget, but in 2020, when this whole issue was discussed, the minority actually delayed filling that position in our big proposal for the budget. And as you know, Monica just mentioned, it's gone all year vacant. In my opinion, once again, some of these positions haven't been filled for whatever reason, but just overall, I'm just going to make the comment again that, before creating some new positions, and in this department specifically, there are no new positions created this year, but I would like to see positions filled that were approved, and obviously moving forward, really honing in the efficiency before adding new positions. So it's just a comment, but I did raise this a couple times during the budget meetings last year, and the minority actually did propose to not fund that position and fund the community police officers last year. But saying all of that, it was not filled all throughout 2021. So I am curious, and Monica mentioned for 2022, looking at the position a little differently, I guess, Quinn. So just a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Council President. Do we have other questions about any aspects of BIS? Okay. Quinn, Andy, Monica, or Patrick, any other things to add to BIS? Okay. Hearing none, can I have a motion to adjourn, please?
Motion.
We'll say Councilmember Gully motion,
I'll second.
and Councilmember Cummings has second. All in favor of adjourning? Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, Quinn. Nice to see you, actually. I saw you at your desk real quick once, but it's nice to see you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Y'all have a great night. Thank you.
Appreciate it. I'll be in touch as well. And computer people tend to, we like to kind of be, in enclosed spaces doing our work. It's how we do our best work.
I've heard that, Ken.
Yes.
I know a couple.
Yeah, right. Okay, I think, Anasha, you're going to take it over. Yeah?
pass the torch. All right.
There you go.
It is the 8:47 p.m. I will call the planning committee meeting to order. Start with the roll. Let's see, Councilmember Ash McPherson,
Present.
Councilmember Steele,
Present.
Chair Cummings is present, and ex officio Carmelo Mantello is present. Also present, Councilmembers Zaleski, Gully, and McDermott, I think. And also present in the room, we've got the Commissioner Steve Streichman, Andy Petrowski, Monica Krzyzewski, the Mayor Patrick Madden, and via Zoom, looks like we have Carolyn Skripchak. Do we want to start with Steve or Carolyn? I can't hear you in the room there.
We're going to start with me. Okay.
Very good.
Okay.
All right, so planning is on page 155, 156. It's an overview.
Okay. Well, an overview, I would say that, last year we slowed down a little bit as far as economic development went with COVID, but things are really starting to pick up right now. That certainly did not stop us from doing planning and activities that help position the city for, social and economic benefits in the future. So we've been certainly working on that. We have coming before the Planning Commission right now a number of projects. Monument Square should be there by December. There's 4 First Columbia projects. The Cannon Building has just sold, and they're getting ready to do renovations. Obviously, all know about Taylor Apartments coming, and City Station is set to close, City Station North, finally in November of this year. So that'll be nice to see that one get going. We've had obviously a lot of successes over the past year and a half. South Troy Industrial Road, Phase 2 is inches away from the acquisition being complete. We just had a hiccup with bankruptcy and the solar panels on top of the Bruno Manufacturing Building. King Fuels remediation, National Grid, we'll be starting that in February. I have a zoning ordinance ready to bring before the City Council. I just need to schedule that in now, and I know everybody's busy right now. We completed Franklin Alley. Was really excited to get the NYSERDA grant to do a feasibility study for district geothermal heating, and we're now lining up to do another application for that, which lines us up for up to close to $4 million for implementation funds. Our zombie prosecution effort has resulted over the last 2 years of $308,000 in settlements on the books, although we have not received all of that money. The wayfinding bid should be going out in the next few weeks to implement that in the spring, to actually put the signage up that we've been talking about for a while. We have 2 street projects combining into one. We have the Congress Ferry tip, which was initially just a paving project and street resurfacing, but it did line us up to be in position for receiving a member item for the Congress Street Bridge, the removal of the ramps and the creation of that greenway there. So that is $10 million worth of improvements that we will see coming in the next year or two. The EPA, we got a $600,000 grant for brownfield investigation, and we're just about to kick off the Federal Street study, which will look at redesigning Federal Street with a possible roundabout, and doing that all the way up to 6th Avenue, which will also line us to be asking this year to be put on the tip for money for Federal Street as well. And that will lead to eventually going across 6th Avenue and start doing some of the changes that we plan for at Hoosick Street in the next couple of years as well. And let's see, obviously we've talked about the First Avenue bicycle trail, so we're finishing the design on that, so that could be implemented next year. The Lansingburg Historic District grant is kicking off now to create a historic district. in the commercial district and in the area up to Third and Fifth Avenue. And while it's small, I think it's a really great success is the disc golf just finished their second 9 holes in Prospect Park. And did a great job cleaning up the park up there. That really built off of our 2017 Garnet Douglas Baltimore Trail creation. I mean, that was started because people were involved in that and they wanted to do other things in Prospect Park as well. So everything we do is, nothing's standalone, everything builds off of each other. Over the course of the next year, obviously their big focuses are going to be Monument Square and the Riverwalk, Hudson River access, the remediation of King Fuels, as I talked about before, South Troy Industrial Road Phase 2, and all of the development along the riverfront from Congress Street Bridge down to the Posting Hill. At least that'll become a major focus now. And then the last 2 pieces, trying to find parking solutions for the loss of the Uncle Sam Garage. We'll be working on that. And then implementing the DRI, which is going to take a lot of time when they award that to us. So that's kind of where we are right now. I can walk you through the changes in the budget.
Chair?
Sure. I guess there's a question on the
Just a
overview.
No. Just a quick comment. Steve, thank you for the update. But all I'm going to ask, there's so many projects. And if we could really just, in terms of following up, focus on the budget, only because those projects will have so many questions. And I would just ask that we try to stick to the budget. We could be here for hours. I mean, there's so much going on, Steve.
I'm with you, and that's what I was going to get into that now. So, again, just like Chris Whalen said, the 100 accounts up on the top, I have no changes in employees up there. Any of the raises are all contract raises, longevity, buyouts, or no buyouts. So that's all dedicated, that's all things that we have no control over. The office supplies, basically they're going in for the same amount. None of my budget items are huge, really. I think the big changes would be down with, well, the zombie grant is over as of October 31st. So next year, there's all the zombie lines, which are the 113 accounts. Those will not be in the account or not in the budget. The big increase, dues and subscriptions to $21,500. That's with the addition now of the building blocks that Quinn was talking about, and that has been really useful for the engineering department, for Chuck Waiton's office as well. So everybody is starting to use that. It's helped us with some of our zombie mailings, even to drop down the cost of the outreach to people who may be in arrears on their taxes to try and get them consulting. So that project has been really good. There's 18,000 is for the subscription for a year in there, and the balance of that is for the iTree software as well. As far as consultant services, that has gone up. There was a need to put in funding for CDTA. They did not bill me at the end of last year, which I did not catch until it was too late. So I've added in last year's payment. Last year we were under budget. This year we're adding in the $37.5 to cover last year's cost as well as this year's cost as well. And then there's funding in there as well for wayfinding and other planning activities, which is really not that significant of an amount. And that's more or less it with the planning budget. So I don't know if questions for me.
The major question is all these 133 lines. Is there a you talked about the $200,000 in revenue. Is there a plan to use some of that revenue to continue this program absent the grant, or what are the next steps for the zombie program?
Well, because we're never sure what we're going to get, it's hard to allocate that revenue into the budget. So I believe the line was a line put in.
No, there's no monies in the budget for zombie property settlements as revenue because it's
No, I'm
entirely
asking about expenditures.
budgeted.
Obviously,
So all the
obviously-
expenditures, to my understanding, all the expenditures are absorbed within the planning department budget or the corporation counsel's office budget.
so this current $80,000 in consultant services, that's for the legal consultants, mostly, is that correct? And is that going into the corporation counsel's office? Are they going to be able to cover that?
Okay, so that was, yeah, when it was that was when we received the funding from the zombie grant that did the first year come into my budget, and then it was moved over into law department. And so I think they're gonna pick up the continued prosecution and the cost of it.
Yeah, obviously they're adding staff. Hopefully some of that can come in-house. We'll talk about that more at the law committee. But obviously you don't want to lose capacity with this program, given the success we've had with it. Let's see, do we have other questions? From,
Chair?
yeah, Council President.
Thank you. Steve, real quick, which position was James' position? Was that the assistant
He's an
planner?
assistant. He's the second assistant planner that's in there. And without that position, I wouldn't have gotten the $10 million that we needed for the Congress Street Bridge study. I mean, that's a vital position. I was down one person last year, and we were really behind the gun without the planning tech. So now he's up and running, and I can't really afford to lose this position. That's the person who helps.
I'm not proposing. I'm not proposing that
Good.
right now. I just was asking. Real
Yeah.
quick, also, Steve, last year, you're right, 2021, the planning tech. So we do have a planning tech on board, correct?
Yes, we do. He started about four months ago, I would say.
Okay.
Probably longer now.
Okay.
And he's
Okay. Thank you.
okay.
So is the assistant plan, is James's position the only one that you need to fill at this point?
Yes. So they're checking with me right now on if I'm hiring off of a list or not. And I've put feelers out for positions on it. He has vacation time anyway, so I can't hire that position for about 5 more weeks.
Okay. Let's see. The only thing I'll mention now and probably discuss a little more with you and in the report is that NYSERDA right now has a grant that we've discussed. I had been discussing with James to fund a climate justice fellowship where they fund the salary, but the municipality would have to fund the benefits. I don't know how we'd have to budget for that at this point. Hoping that we can get it in January, or if we just move it from contingency if we did get that. Are you aware of that, or should I discuss it with you more later?
I'm aware of it. We've discussed it. I guess it's up to the city council and how you want to handle the budgeting of that, given that we don't know if that's even a position yet.
Andy, how would it work to set aside the required money for the benefits for such a position? Is that something you've handled in the past, or is it something you just want to take out of contingency if we got it?
Benefits.
It's really hard to budget benefits, right? Pensions budgeted to the total and then allocated to the departments. Health insurance, it's very dependent on if it's a single plan or a family plan. There's a pretty substantial cost difference. Just generally speaking, when it comes to budget transfers, the process is first the department looks to find the money within their budget, and if it's not available, then we use contingency.
I guess the question is, should we put something in this budget towards sustainability work that ideally would go towards this or could be used in other ways, or just wait and handle it next year?
It would be the city council's decision right now if they, the budget process to include funding for it.
Okay.
If it's not, and the city receives the grant, then certainly a budget amendment would be needed and monies would need to be found to cover the cost of the benefits.
Okay, thank you. I guess in general, it sounds like, Steve, you have a lot of big projects that are being worked on through your department, and more coming down the pike. With the turnover that you've had, is that, it's two enough to manage these projects? Well, plus of course you and the
Well, if you want to write another line in my budget, I can always use more people. I mean, we can all work, not just my department alone, 70 hours a week and not get everything done. There's definitely not enough of us to get everything done.
Yeah, I'm seeing that, and certainly, I think the economic development line is one that sees a lot of dividends from the work that we do. Obviously, that's true across most of the departments in the city, but it seems like obviously there are dozens of projects that everyone would like to see move forward faster, and that would only benefit the city if it does. So I'll put that in the notes. But any other questions on this budget?
Chair?
Yeah.
You're going to do zoning and planning boards next, correct?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
cool. Because I had a question. I saw the 2 more members. Thank you.
Yeah, we'll definitely want to talk about that. But yeah, any further questions on the planning department?
Chair.
Okay. Yes,
Chair.
Councilmember McPherson.
I just want to ask, Steve, I'm looking at last year's budget. We moved the consultant services fees to the corporate council. That's what I'm looking at, my notes from last year to this year. And it looks like we moved, and Andy, you'll know the numbers when you look at it. I think it was 20,000.
Oh, from planning and zoning, are you talking about, or?
Yeah, from planning and economic development, zoning planning.
This is the zombie grant.
I'm sorry?
I think that's the zombie grant.
No, I'm looking, let's just look at the budget today. I'm on page 160, sorry. The consultant
Right.
services fees of the prior incumbent year was 16,250.
Yep, so that's
Okay.
moved to, right, that is council to the planning and zoning boards.
Well, my question is because you've got nothing in here because there's nothing in the consultant fee. But I'm just looking at the previous year, we moved 20,000, but this is saying 16,000. So there's a $3,000 difference.
Yeah, 16,000 was not adequate. So it was increased to 20,000. There's a lot, there were a lot of other things, not just planning and zoning, we use this council for and other zoning issues as well.
There's some feedback. Are there multiple speakers going on in one of the locations?
Just me.
Okay, it's a weird feedback.
I don't hear it, but I'm just asking in 2021, we moved the 20,000 from the consultant line, the 409, we moved that to the corporate council. So that would have wiped that out. I'm just looking at in this
Right.
year, the consultant fee, the prior incumbents, it says we wiped out 16,250. It was just a 3,000 and something difference. I was wondering where that money went. You see what
Well,
I'm?
the 16,250, you want to go?
So,
Steve is also dialed in on his phone,
Yes, Steve's
so I don't know if
phone.
that's affecting it.
Yeah.
No, that's in my office. I thought you meant on my cell phone.
So I'm trying to understand the question.
I'm just wondering why it's saying in the prior year incumbents is 16,250. But I don't see
So
that
that's
number,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
but I don't see that number in the prior year is what I'm saying.
So the 2022 document that you're looking at, page 160, that 16,250 is the actual cost from the 2020 fiscal year. If you go back to the 2020 budget, the 16,250
It's not there.
would have been, do you have the 2020 budget in front, 21 budget in front of you?
I do.
If you go to page 151 at the bottom,
Yep.
you see the 409, it's 0, 20,000, 2,150.
Yep.
The 16,250 and the 2150 are correlated. So in 2020 through June 30th, we had spent $2,150
I
out
got
of that
it. I got
account.
it. Okay. I was just trying to figure this out. Okay. I got it. I got where it is. Thank you.
Okay, so we have moved on to the zoning and planning boards. Now, are there, certainly, Steve, do you want to do any high level overview or just at least address the two additional positions? Oh, you're muted still.
Okay, so we've had 5 members for a while. Other communities have 7 members. It's made things really tough. Obviously, with some of the issues going on right now, or some of the cases before the Planning Commission, but this would allow for more than one. You have one person out, you've got a problem. You have a 2-2 tie, and certainly if you have one person out, you can always have a tie. But the ability for any backup, you have one person out or 2 people out, there's not a lot of additional room, and this just really brings us more into line with what other communities do. It brings more voices to the Planning Commission as well, and allows us to get more people from the community to participate. I think it's something we should do. I think it's something we really need to do, and so obviously if the council's on board with this, we would need to have a change to the city code, have a public hearing. So I'm preparing that legislation to do that before the end of the year. But we also would change it so that we're not appointing people that have specific requirements. Andy Brick, our counsel, says that he does this he represents planning and zoning boards all over the state. And he says, we are the only community that says you need to have a licensed real estate broker who lives in the community. We have one. So it's a hard position to fill. Getting an engineer is tough often. We've been able to do it. So we just want to increase this so we have more flexibility at meetings and also in appointing people to these positions.
Okay. If I remember correctly, there had been some issues with certain cases requiring a supermajority. Would that change the supermajority number so that 2 could dissent essentially as well?
That's is that zoning?
That's just zoning board.
That's
Yeah,
just
just
okay.
Zoning board. And yeah.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Any other questions on this then?
Chair?
Yes, Council President.
Yep, just real quick, I'm open to expanding the planning board, Steve. I understand what you're saying in terms of, having a quorum, et cetera. However, in terms of the realtor and the engineer, maybe as you're sitting down with Rick and the mayor drafting the legislation, I would ask, I do like having that background, but maybe not being so specific in terms of a real estate agent, like, having it be maybe a little broader definition for those particular, for
And-
the planning board, just, more maybe generic, but also, I think having the experience is very important. And then secondly, as you're looking at the legislation, I hope that the council maybe keeps an open mind, but the mayor has all the appointments to the planning board, and I would recommend the majority and the minority appointments. So I would just like the council to think about that as the legislation is being drafted. And then once we get the legislation, we can talk about it. Thanks.
I don't think we're allowed to appoint
Okay.
commissioners, if I remember correctly.
Not-
There's something
not
in
planning.
state. No, just, I feel like there was something about state law that we dealt with around the environmental commission.
I don't think so, but we could
that-
check it out. We could check it out.
And I would just add, that's a very good point about, while we're not looking for specific professions, we would have language in there talking about experience in the field. And that will come in the legislation. But yes, that was a very good point.
Okay. Any further questions on planning, or shall we move on to CDBG? Okay, thank you, Steve. And hello, Carolyn.
Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Steve.
All right. Do you want to start with an overview? Certainly, it's been a busy couple years with some added funds. Maybe talk about some of the accomplishments and goals just briefly, and then we'll dive into the budget.
Do you want to start off with the COVID funding first?
Sure.
All right. That one we are almost to the end of. We are still working with businesses that have applied and getting them to get the documentation to us that they need so that we can send them their fundings. But the majority of them are doing well and getting us the stuff that they need. We are now working on, well, actually, we just finished our year-end reporting to HUD. So now we are focusing on what's for the remainder of our COVID funds and getting that health equipment to our playgrounds. Because a lot of people had asked that if we could start doing that into some of the playgrounds, because all the fitness centers and everything shut down through COVID. And a lot of municipalities had outdoor health equipment in their parks, and we did not. So we decided to go in that route, and HUD actually loved the idea. So they backed us 100% on that. And we're going to start working with the New York State contracts to see if we can get some of the equipment purchased so that we could be ready to go by the spring of next year to get it all installed.
That's great to hear. Is that all targeted on specific sites within parks? I know I've also seen
We're
really
hoping to get a
successful
little bit
like
in-
trails that
We're
have that
hoping
sort
to
of
get
thing.
a little bit in most of the parks. Is
Okay.
our focus so
Yeah.
that it's spread out for people that can't get to the bigger parks but can walk to the smaller parks to have something there for them.
Yeah. I don't know. Obviously, it's you're developing the program, but I'll just mention that I've seen very successful programs where, say, like along the riverfront trail, every several hundred feet or something, there's another kind of stretch you can do, various equipment along, so that you're encouraging them to walk along the trails and having that workout equipment along the way. I don't know if that's what you have in mind, or if you might want to coordinate with
I
Steve
could
on some of the
definitely
work
consider that.
he's doing on the
Yep, we
trail,
can
but
definitely
I feel like that
consider doing
could fit well together.
Yep.
But that sounds great. Any other exciting new programs that you're looking to roll out?
No, we are still working on with Little Italy and continuing on that. And if you ask those neighborhoods, they are very excited about that work moving forward.
Absolutely.
And we're coming to a close on our first half of it because our winter is coming quickly. So we'll be wrapping up our 2 blocks on 3rd, and then we will be moving forward in the spring to continue on. We're hoping to meet with, since we're going to be hitting a lot of businesses next year with the sidewalk stuff, that we want to meet with them to see if any of them are interested in the outdoor dining, if there is space for us to do that for some of them, to include it because we never had that opportunity either. We really didn't need to, but now that's kind of the focus, that if we can supply a spot, that's going to be added into our normal reinvestment projects now.
Great. Okay. Anything else on the overview, or should we jump into the budget?
Well, we can jump into the budget. Mine's probably going to be the easiest one of all. 'Cause
Pretty
there's really no
straightforward.
changes.
I did see the CDBG outreach coordinator. How long has that been vacant?
The CDB, that one actually hasn't been vacant. I actually have a person that is under that title, but working under the CDBG technicians provisional until I
Okay.
get his test scores back. And once that is, he'll be permanent in the CDBG technician, and then I can start looking for the CDBG outreach coordinator position to fill.
Gotcha. So technically, the CDBG technician position is vacant, although it's being done by the person in the CDBG.
Right, and he has already taken the test. We're just waiting for the results.
Okay. So then that'll add a little bit of capacity
Yes.
for the outreach coordinator.
Yes, we can
that'll-
definitely use an extra body.
I'm sure. And
Especially if they're gonna keep flooding us with all this extra money.
yeah, get that out the door.
Yeah,
That's great. Any questions from council members? When does the next 5-year plan start?
we're only going into year 2, so we got another 3 years.
Okay. Time doesn't fly as quickly as I thought. All right, great. Well, thanks for sticking with us for all this time.
I always save the best for last. I know that.
Indeed. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Motion to adjourn.
You're welcome.
Motion from Councilmember Ashley McPherson. A second from, was that a second from Sue Steele?
It was.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
I
Aye. Very good. Thank you all.
Thanks, Anasha.
Thanks, everybody.
We're done. Good night.